Blood pooled across white linoleum under flickering fluorescent lights as Nashville Memorial Hospital's night shift exploded into chaos. A mangled SUV had delivered its cargo, Cassandra Vale, tech royalty worth $500 million, now just broken flesh and shattered bone, begging a minimum wage security guard for mercy she didn't deserve. "Please, just make it fast," she whispered through blood-frothed lips. But Noah Mercer, single father, overnight watchman, invisible man, saw what the surgeons hadn't arrived to see yet. This woman was 30 seconds from dying, and he was the only one who could stop it. If you want to see how a forgotten hero rewrites a ruthless CEO's entire existence, stay until the very end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The emergency bay doors slammed open at 11:47 p.m., and Nashville Memorial Hospital's quiet Thursday night disintegrated into controlled catastrophe. Trauma incoming, female, mid-30s, multi-vehicle collision on I-40. The paramedic's voice cut through the antiseptic air as the gurney wheels screamed across the floor. Severe abdominal trauma, possible internal bleeding, BP dropping fast. We need a surgeon now. Noah Mercer looked up from his security desk near the ER entrance, his coffee growing cold in his hand. 10 years ago, that particular tone of desperate professionalism would have sent him sprinting toward the chaos. Tonight, it just made his chest tighten with muscle memory he'd spent a decade trying to forget. He watched the trauma team converge, nurses in scrubs appearing from doorways, residents stumbling out of the break room still half asleep, the charge nurse barking orders into her phone trying to locate the on-call surgeon. Standard choreography for a level 1 trauma center on a weeknight. Noah's job was simple. Watch the doors, check IDs, keep the drunks and desperate away from the ER. Nothing more. He turned back to his crossword puzzle, pen hovering over 7-letter word for abandon. Then he heard it. "Where the hell is Dr. Patterson?" The charge nurse's voice had shifted from commanding to panicked. "Someone page him again. This patient is circling the drain." "He's not answering," a younger nurse's voice cracked. "He was in surgery until 20 minutes ago. He might still be—" "We don't have 20 minutes. Get me anyone with surgical credentials." Noah's pen stopped moving. Against every instinct that told him to stay in his lane, to remember his place, to protect the quiet life he'd built. He stood up. The scene before him was deteriorating rapidly. The patient, expensive clothes shredded and blood-soaked, dark hair matted to her skull, was barely conscious on the gurney. Her skin had gone the particular shade of gray that Noah recognized from too many battlefield tents, the color that meant organs were shutting down. That meant minutes mattered more than protocol. 3 nurses surrounded her, one trying to establish a second IV line, another attempting to stem bleeding from a laceration across her abdomen, the third monitoring vitals that were clearly spiraling. No doctor, no surgeon, no one actually in charge. "BP is 70/40 and dropping," the monitoring nurse called out. "Heart rate 130 and climbing." Noah's body moved before his mind caught up. He crossed the 15 feet to the trauma bay in 4 strides, his security badge swinging against his chest. "Excuse me," he said quietly, his voice cutting through the chaos with the kind of calm that only comes from genuine crisis experience. The charge nurse, Sandra, her name tag read, barely glanced at him. "Not now, Noah. We need medical personnel, not—" "She's got maybe 2 minutes before she loses consciousness completely." Noah's eyes were locked on the patient, reading signs these nurses were too stressed to see. That abdominal wound isn't just surface trauma. The way her belly's distending, the rigidity, she's bleeding internally. Probably splenic rupture given the impact zone. Sandra's head snapped toward him. "How do you—" "Put pressure higher, above the wound." Noah gestured to the nurse trying to control the bleeding. "You're missing the source. And get me O-negative blood, at least 4 units ready. She's going into hypovolemic shock." For a frozen moment, everyone stared at the security guard in his cheap uniform issuing orders like he owned the trauma bay. Then the patient gasped, a horrible, wet sound, and her eyes rolled back. "She's crashing!" Sandra shouted. Noah didn't ask permission. He grabbed a pair of gloves from the wall dispenser and snapped them on in one fluid motion, muscle memory from another lifetime taking over. He shouldered past the confused nurses and positioned himself at the patient's side. Someone keep that IV flowing and get me another line in her other arm, he commanded, his hands already moving across her body, checking for additional injuries with practiced efficiency. And find me that damned surgeon. His fingers found her carotid pulse, thready, rapid, weakening. Her pupils were dilating unevenly. Internal bleeding was stealing her life one heartbeat at a time. Sir, you can't, one of the younger nurses started. He just did, Sandra interrupted, something in Noah's face apparently convincing her to let this play out. Everyone shut up and do what he says. Rebecca, get Dr. Patterson on the line if you have to drive to his house. Move. Noah tuned out everything except the woman dying in front of him. He'd seen this exact scenario 30, maybe 40 times in forward operating bases across Afghanistan. Different uniforms, different accents, same desperate mathematics of trauma care. What's her name? He asked, checking her airway. Sandra grabbed the clipboard. Cassandra Vale. She was pulled from a crashed Range Rover on the interstate. Witnesses said she was T-boned by a semi that ran a red light. Cassandra Vale. The name triggered recognition somewhere in Noah's mind, but he pushed it aside. Right now she was just a patient, just a person who needed not to die in the next 90 seconds. Cassandra, he said firmly, leaning close to her ear. My name is Noah. You're at Nashville Memorial Hospital. You've been in an accident, but you're going to be okay. Do you understand me? Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, and glazed with pain. When she tried to speak, blood bubbled at her lips. Don't talk, Noah said gently, grabbing gauze to dab at her mouth. Just listen to my voice. I need you to stay with me, okay? Keep fighting. Please. Her voice was barely a whisper, so faint Noah had to lean closer to hear. Please, just make it fast. The words hit him like a physical blow. She thought she was dying. Worse, she'd accepted it, maybe even welcomed it. No, Noah said firmly, his hand finding hers and squeezing. That's not happening tonight. Not on my watch. He looked up at Sandra. Where's that blood? Coming. A nurse rushed in with units of O negative. Start transfusing now and get her core temp. I need to know if she's getting hypothermic. Noah's hands moved to her abdomen, palpating carefully. She moaned in pain, and he saw consciousness starting to slip away from her eyes. Stay with me, Cassandra. Keep those eyes open. It hurts, she breathed. I know it does. But that pain means you're alive, and we're going to keep you that way. Noah pulled off his security jacket without thinking and draped it over her chest and shoulders. She was starting to shiver, early hypothermia setting in from blood loss. Someone get me warm blankets, heated if you've got them. His wrist was exposed now, and Sandra's eyes caught on something there, faded tattoos, military insignia, and a string of numbers and letters that she recognized from her husband's Marine Corps service. Medical Corps designations. You're military, she said quietly. Was, Noah corrected, not looking up from his patient. Long time ago. Bullshit. Sandra moved to his side, her entire demeanor changed. Those aren't weekend warrior tats. You were a combat medic. Army, Noah confirmed tersely. 68, 3 deployments. But that was another life, Sandra. Right now I just need... Dr. Patterson is 5 minutes out, Rebecca called from the phone. She doesn't have 5 minutes, Noah said flatly. He looked at Sandra with absolute certainty. We need to get her to an OR and opened up in the next 2 minutes, or her spleen is going to bleed her out before any surgeon gets scrubbed in. You want me to authorize an OR for a security guard to... I want you to authorize an OR for a patient who's dying, Noah interrupted. His voice was steel underneath velvet. What I do or don't do is irrelevant. She needs surgical intervention now. Patterson can take over the second he walks in, but we need to move. Sandra held his gaze for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then she grabbed the phone. This is Charge Nurse Reeves, authorized emergency OR3. Incoming abdominal trauma, suspected splenic rupture. Surgical team to meet us there immediately. She slammed the phone down. You better know what you're doing, Noah. I do. He was already releasing the gurney's brakes. Let's move. They exploded through the hallway toward the surgical wing, Noah at the head of the gurney, 2 nurses keeping IVs flowing, Sandra calling ahead to clear their path. Cassandra's hand had found Noah's jacket still draped over her, clutching it like a lifeline. Stay with me, Noah kept saying, his voice a steady anchor in her spinning world. You're doing great, Cassandra. Just a little further. The OR doors loomed ahead. The surgical team was scrambling to prep, clearly confused about why a patient was being wheeled in by a security guard, but training overrode questions. Talk to me, Noah said to the scrub nurse. What have we got ready? OR3 is open, anesthesiologist is 2 minutes out. Get him here in 1. This patient needs to be under and opened in the next 90 seconds. Noah helped transfer Cassandra to the surgical table with practiced care. Where's Patterson? Pulling in now, he'll be scrubbed in 3 minutes. Then prep for an emergency X-lap and have suction ready. She's got a belly full of blood. Noah finally stepped back, his hands up, acknowledging he'd pushed his authority as far as it could go. She's all yours. But Cassandra's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength for someone barely conscious. Don't go, she whispered. Noah looked down at her, at the stranger whose expensive jewelry was being cut away by nurses, whose designer clothes were soaked in her own blood, whose face was twisted in agony and fear. I'm not going anywhere, he promised quietly. I'll be right outside when you wake up. The anesthesiologist rushed in, and suddenly Noah was being ushered back, out of the sterile field, out of the room where he'd just saved a woman's life using skills he'd sworn he'd left behind forever. He stood outside OR3, his uniform shirt blood-stained, his jacket still on that surgical table, his hands shaking slightly from adrenaline crash. Sandra found him there 10 minutes later. Dr. Patterson just opened her up, she said quietly. You were right. Ruptured spleen, active bleeding. He said if she'd waited another 3 minutes, she didn't finish the sentence. How did you know? Noah leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I've seen it before. Too many times. Army medic. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Why the hell are you working security? Noah was quiet for a long moment, looking at his hands. Hands that had just held together a dying woman. Hands that had saved countless lives in desert tents and mountain outposts. Hands that now spent their nights checking ID badges and walking empty corridors. Because I have a daughter, he said finally. And she needs a dad who comes home every morning, not one who deploys overseas or works 18-hour shifts at some hospital where he'd never see her. This job, it's quiet, it's stable, and it lets me be there for Lily. That's all that matters. Sandra studied him with new eyes. Your wife? Died 4 years ago. Aneurysm, completely unexpected. Lily was 4 years old. Noah pushed off from the wall. I was working as a paramedic then, pulling double shifts to make ends meet. I wasn't even home when it happened. So I made a choice. Lily needed stability more than I needed a career. So you became invisible, Sandra said softly. I became present, Noah corrected, for the one person who needed me most. The OR doors swung open and Dr. Patterson emerged, still in his surgical gown, pulling down his mask. He was 60, gray-haired, with the confident bearing of a surgeon who'd spent decades making life-and-death decisions. She's stable, he announced. We removed the spleen, repaired a laceration to her liver, and stopped the bleeding. She's damn lucky. His eyes found Noah. You're the security guard who stabilized her? Yes, sir. Sandra tells me you diagnosed splenic rupture before anyone else even realized how serious this was. I've seen similar injuries before. Patterson's eyes narrowed. Army? Yes, sir. 68 whiskey, 3 deployments, Afghanistan. The surgeon studied him for a long moment. You saved her life. If she'd waited for me to get here from my daughter's piano recital, she'd be dead. You understand that? Noah shrugged uncomfortably. You would have done the same, Doc. I just happened to be standing there. Most security guards would have stayed at their desk. Patterson extended his hand. Thank you, son. Truly. Noah shook it, feeling the weight of gratitude he didn't know how to carry. How long until she wakes up? Few hours. We'll keep her sedated through the night, let her body stabilize. She'll be in ICU recovery. Patterson paused. She's going to want to thank you herself, I imagine. That's not necessary. Maybe not to you, Sandra interjected, but you might want to know who you just saved. That's Cassandra Vale, the Cassandra Vale. Noah's blank expression made her laugh. You really don't know? She's the CEO of Valcor Technologies, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. She's been on the cover of Time magazine, Forbes, everything. She's kind of a big deal. Noah absorbed this information with the same mild interest he might give to learning she was an accountant or a teacher. Well, I'm glad she's going to be okay. That's all that matters. You're really not going to try to leverage this? Sandra sounded genuinely baffled. The media is going to be all over this story. Brilliant CEO saved by humble security guard. That's a headline that could change your life. I don't want my life to change, Noah said simply. I like my life. He glanced at the clock on the wall, 12:43 a.m. Speaking of which, I need to check on Lily. She's doing homework in the cafeteria. Your daughter is here? Patterson looked concerned. At this hour? Every night I work. The school she goes to ends at 3:30, and I can't afford after-school care on what security pays, so she comes here. Does her homework, reads in the cafeteria. Night shift staff keeps an eye on her, and she's usually asleep on the couch in the staff lounge by midnight. Noah said this matter-of-factly, without a trace of self-pity. It's not ideal, but it works for us. Sandra and Patterson exchanged a look that Noah pretended not to see. The look people always gave him when they realized the true arithmetic of his life, the impossible math of single parenthood on poverty wages. Anyway, Noah said, I should get back to my post. Let me know if there's any paperwork I need to fill out about all this. He walked away before they could say anything else, his blood-stained uniform a testament to the gap between the man he'd been and the man he'd chosen to become. The cafeteria was mostly dark, lit only by emergency lighting and the vending machine's glow. In the corner booth that had become their unofficial territory, 8-year-old Lily Mercer sat with her math homework spread across the table, her blonde ponytail slightly askew, her tongue poking out in concentration the way it always did when she worked on word problems. She looked up when Noah approached, and her face split into a grin. Dad, you're all… Wait, is that blood? It's okay, sweetheart. Just had to help someone who got hurt. Noah slid into the booth across from her, suddenly aware of how he must look. Everyone's fine now. Lily's eyes were wide. Did you use your army doctor stuff? I'm not a doctor, Lil. I was a medic, and yeah, maybe a little. Cool. She said this with the casual acceptance of a child who'd grown up hearing stories about her father's service. Mrs. Chen from radiology brought me hot chocolate, she pointed to an empty mug. And I finished all my math homework. Want to check it? Noah pulled her worksheet closer, his heart swelling with the kind of love that still sometimes surprised him with its intensity. This little girl, who spent her nights in hospital cafeterias, who never complained about their cramped apartment or her secondhand clothes, who smiled at him like he'd hung the moon when all he'd really done was choose her over everything else. She was the reason he'd walked away from combat medicine, from the adrenaline, from the sense of purpose that came with saving lives in impossible circumstances. This is perfect, Lil Bug. He checked the last problem. You got them all right. I know. She said this without arrogance, just simple confidence. Math is easy, not like spelling. You want to practice your spelling words? Nah, I'm kind of tired. She yawned as if to prove her point. Can I sleep in the lounge? Yeah, let me just grab my jacket and… Noah stopped, remembering. His jacket was currently in OR3, probably being incinerated as medical waste. Never mind. Come on. He walked Lily to the staff lounge, a room that had become intimately familiar over the past 4 years. The night nurses had already set up the couch with blankets and a pillow. They did this most nights now, had stopped asking if there wasn't anywhere else Lily could go, had stopped offering suggestions that Noah had already considered and discarded as impossible given his finances. Lily climbed onto the couch, and Noah tucked her in, brushing hair from her forehead. Dad? She said sleepily. Yeah, Bug? You're a hero. You know that? Noah's throat tightened. I'm just your dad. Same thing. Her eyes were already closing. Love you. Love you too, Lily Bug. Sleep tight. He stood there for a moment, watching her breathe, this small person who was his entire world. Then he returned to his security desk, picked up his crossword puzzle, and found the word he'd been looking for earlier. Desert. 7 letters for abandon. He'd abandoned one life for another, and he'd never once regretted it. Upstairs in ICU recovery, Cassandra Vale dreamed fever dreams of blood and screaming metal and a quiet voice telling her to stay, to fight, to live. When she woke up 18 hours later, she would not remember the security guard's face, would not recall his name, would have only the haziest recollection of gentle hands and a calm voice cutting through her pain. But she would remember his jacket, heavy and warm across her chest when everything else was cold. And she would remember his words, "That pain means you're alive, and we're going to keep you that way." She would remember, and eventually, that memory would change everything. The rest of the night passed quietly for Noah. He made his rounds, checked doors, nodded to nurses coming on and off shift. At 6:47 a.m., his replacement arrived, a retired cop named Danny, who always brought donuts and never asked questions about the little girl sleeping in the staff lounge. Noah gently woke Lily, helped her gather her homework, and walked her out to his 15-year-old Honda in the parking lot. The sun was just starting to paint Nashville's skyline in shades of pink and gold. "Can we get pancakes?" Lily asked hopefully. Noah mentally calculated his checking account balance. $300 until next Friday's paycheck, minus $89 for electric, minus $150 for rent, minus groceries. "How about I make you pancakes at home? With chocolate chips? Do we have chocolate chips?" "I hid some in the back of the freezer so you wouldn't find them." Noah laughed, the sound surprising him after the intensity of the night. "Then yes, chocolate chip pancakes it is." Their apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. 2 bedrooms, though Noah's bedroom was really just the living room with a folding bed he set up each morning. But it was clean, it was theirs, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions when rent was occasionally a few days late. While Lily showered and changed for school, Noah made pancakes in their tiny kitchen, his mind drifting back to the trauma bay, to Cassandra Vale's gray face and desperate eyes. He wondered if she'd make it, if Patterson's surgery had been enough, if all Noah's intervention had done was buy her a few more hours or a full recovery. He wondered if she'd remember him at all. Then Lily emerged in her school uniform, slightly too big because he'd bought it a size up so she could grow into it, and smiled at the plate of pancakes waiting for her, and Noah stopped wondering about Cassandra Vale entirely. This was his life. This little girl, this moment, this pancake breakfast before school drop-off, and 8 hours of sleep before his next shift. This was enough. It had to be. At Nashville Memorial Hospital, Cassandra Vale's eyes flickered open in ICU recovery. Her first thought was pain, a deep, throbbing agony in her abdomen. Her second thought was confusion. Where was she? What had happened? Why couldn't she move? Then memory crashed back. The meeting, the highway, the truck's headlights filling her windshield, the impact, the blood. "Ms. Vale?" A nurse appeared at her bedside, professional concern on her face. "Welcome back. You're at Nashville Memorial. You were in an accident, but you're going to be fine." "How?" Cassandra's voice was a rasp. "How bad?" "You had surgery. Dr. Patterson removed your spleen and repaired some internal injuries. You're very lucky to be alive." Lucky. Cassandra almost laughed, but it hurt too much. Luck had nothing to do with it. She was alive because she'd been in a $90,000 vehicle with the best safety features money could buy, because she'd been rushed to a top-tier hospital, because she could afford the best surgeon in Tennessee. Luck was for people who didn't have control. There was someone, Cassandra frowned, chasing fragments of memory. In the ER, before the surgery, a man, he covered me with his jacket. The nurse smiled. "Oh, that was Noah, one of our security guards. He actually stabilized you before Dr. Patterson arrived. Quite the hero." Security guard. The words didn't match the memory. The confident hands, the medical knowledge, the commanding presence. "I want to thank him," Cassandra said. "I'm sure he'd appreciate that. He works night shift, so he's probably home sleeping now. But I can make sure he knows you asked after him." Home sleeping. Cassandra filed this information away with all the other data she collected about people, their vulnerabilities, their motivations, their uses. She owed this Noah person her life. That was an unacceptable power dynamic. She'd need to correct it, to restore balance, to ensure she wasn't indebted to some random security guard who might decide to cash in on his heroism at an inopportune moment. But first, she needed to heal, to get back to Vailcore, to the product launch she'd been driving to finalize when the accident happened, to the board meeting where 3 members were angling to push her out while she was emotionally compromised by the crash. They thought she was vulnerable now. They thought this accident would break her, would make her weak, would give them the opening they needed. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Cassandra Vail had built a tech empire from nothing, had clawed her way up from a middle-class background to billionaire status before age 35, had crushed competitors and fired friends, and sacrificed relationships all in service of success. A car accident wasn't going to stop her. Nothing was going to stop her. But as she drifted back into medicated sleep, her last conscious thought was of a quiet voice saying, "That pain means you're alive, and we're going to keep you that way." And for just a moment, she wondered what it meant to be alive for reasons beyond ambition and achievement. Then the morphine pulled her under, and she stopped wondering anything at all. 3 days passed before Cassandra was stable enough to receive visitors beyond her assistant and legal team. 3 days of morphine hazes and surgical check-ins, of physical therapists forcing her to walk 10 feet down the hallway, of her body screaming protest at every movement while her mind calculated the cost of each hour away from Vailcore. Her hospital room had transformed into a makeshift office. 2 laptops sat on the rolling table, her phone rang constantly despite the nurse's disapproving looks, and her assistant Marcus had set up a mobile workspace in the corner, fielding calls and managing the crisis of her absence. "The board wants to meet," Marcus said on the 3rd afternoon, his tablet glowing with calendar notifications. "They're calling it a wellness check, but Chen and Bradshaw are pushing for a temporary replacement while you recover." Cassandra's jaw tightened, sending a spike of pain through her still healing body. "Tell them I'll video conference into Friday's meeting. Full participation." "Cassandra, you just had major surgery." "Which I survived. I'm not giving them ammunition to question my capacity." She shifted in the bed, biting back a gasp. "What else?" "The accident made national news. Tech blogs are running stories about your recovery, investors are nervous, and PR wants to know how you want to handle the narrative." "What narrative?" "I was in a car accident. I'm recovering. Business continues." Cassandra reached for her water glass, frustrated when her hand trembled slightly. "Tell PR to issue a statement. Minimal injuries, full recovery expected, gratitude to the medical team at Nashville Memorial. Keep it brief." "There's one other thing." Marcus hesitated. "Several journalists are asking about the security guard who saved your life. Apparently some of the ER nurses talked to the press about how he took charge before the surgeon arrived, how he used combat medical training, the whole hero angle." Something cold settled in Cassandra's chest. "What security guard?" "Noah Mercer. He's the one who stabilized you in the ER. The nurses are calling him a hero, and the story's getting traction on social media. There's even a hashtag, #SecurityGuardHero. Cassandra's mind raced. This was exactly what she'd feared. Someone with leverage over her. Someone whose heroism created a narrative she didn't control. Someone who could capitalize on saving a billionaire's life. "I want his file," she said quietly. Marcus blinked. "Whose file?" "Noah Mercer's. Employment records, background, everything Nashville Memorial has on him. And I want to speak with hospital administration about keeping this quiet." "Cassandra, the man saved your life. Don't you want to thank him?" "Of course I do, privately. Not in some media circus that makes me look weak and him look like a savior." She met Marcus's eyes with the steel that had built her empire. "Get me the file." Marcus nodded, recognizing the tone that meant argument was futile, and left to make calls. Alone in her room, Cassandra stared at the ceiling and tried to piece together fragmented memories of that night. A calm voice and gentle hands, a jacket that smelled like coffee and detergent, warm against her skin when everything else was cold. Words that had cut through her pain-soaked panic. "Stay with me. You're doing great." She didn't remember his face, didn't remember if he'd been young or old, tall or short, just remembered feeling, for the first time in years, like someone actually gave a damn whether she lived or died. Not because of who she was or what she was worth, but simply because she was a person who needed help. It was a dangerous feeling. Cassandra had built her success by never needing anyone, by never being vulnerable, by never owing debts she couldn't immediately repay. This Noah Mercer had made her vulnerable, had seen her broken and bleeding and begging for death, had witnessed her at her absolute weakest. That couldn't stand. By evening, Marcus returned with a thin folder. Hospital admin wasn't thrilled about sharing employee files, but I implied there might be a generous donation to their new wing if they cooperated. Cassandra took the folder, noting how light it was. "This is everything?" "That's what concerns me. There's almost nothing here." She opened it. The file contained basic employment paperwork. Noah Mercer, age 34, hired 4 years ago as night shift security. High school diploma, Army service from age 18 to 28, honorable discharge, current address in a low-income neighborhood, emergency contact, Lily Mercer, daughter, no college degree, no career progression, no ambition evident in any of it, just a former soldier working a dead-end job for barely above minimum wage. "This doesn't make sense," Cassandra murmured. "The nurses said he had combat medical training, that he diagnosed my injuries before the surgeon arrived. That's not security guard skill set." "I did some digging," Marcus said. "He was an Army 68W. That's a combat medic. 3 deployments to Afghanistan, multiple commendations for field medicine. One nurse told me he probably saved dozens of lives overseas." "Then why is he working hospital security?" Cassandra flipped through the sparse documents again. "Someone with that experience could be a paramedic, an ER tech, could go to nursing school or PA school. Why is he checking IDs for $12 an hour?" "Single father." Marcus pulled up something on his tablet. "His wife died 4 years ago, right around when he took this job. He's raising an 8-year-old daughter alone. According to hospital gossip, the kid spends every night in the cafeteria while he works." The image Marcus painted didn't fit Cassandra's mental framework. In her world, people maximize their potential, leverage their skills, optimize their earning capacity. A decorated combat medic working security was like a concert pianist playing grocery store music, a waste of talent that bordered on offensive. Unless the potential wasn't being wasted, unless it was being sacrificed for a daughter, for stability, for being present instead of successful. Cassandra closed the folder, unsettled by thoughts she couldn't quite articulate. "Set up a meeting with him. Here, tomorrow if possible. I want to thank him personally." "Are you sure that's wise? The media attention will be managed. Just arrange it, Marcus." The next afternoon, Noah Mercer walked into Cassandra Vale's hospital room, carrying a discomfort that sat on his shoulders like physical weight. He'd argued with himself all morning about whether to come, had almost called to cancel twice, but Sandra had asked him personally, and he'd never been good at refusing direct requests from people he respected. The room was nothing like he'd expected. He'd imagined something sterile and medicinal, maybe a few flower arrangements. Instead, he found what looked like a corporate war room, laptops and tablets everywhere. A woman in expensive business casual taking notes in the corner, and Cassandra Vale herself propped up in bed. Her dark hair pulled back severely, her face pale but composed, her eyes sharp and assessing. She looked nothing like the broken woman he'd covered with his jacket. This version of Cassandra Vale radiated control and calculation, even in a hospital gown. "Mr. Mercer," her voice was steady, professional. "Thank you for coming." "Ma'am." Noah stayed near the door, hyper-aware of his cheap jeans and old flannel shirt, of the gulf between her world and his. "I'm glad you're recovering." "Because of you, apparently." Cassandra gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Please, sit." Noah hesitated, then complied, perching on the edge of the chair like he might need to bolt at any moment. Cassandra studied him with the intensity of someone used to reading people for profit. He was younger than she'd imagined, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of lean build that came from physical work rather than gym memberships. His hands were calloused, his watch was a cheap Timex, and his eyes, gray-blue and cautious, held the particular wariness of someone who'd learned not to trust easy situations. "The nurses tell me you saved my life," Cassandra said. "That you stabilized me before the surgeon arrived, that without your intervention, I would have bled out in the ER." "Dr. Patterson saved your life, ma'am. I just helped until he could get there." "Don't be modest. I've read the incident reports. You diagnosed a splenic rupture, managed my hemorrhaging, and got me to surgery with minutes to spare. That's not just helping. Noah shifted uncomfortably. I did what anyone with medical training would do. Except you're not medical staff, you're security. So why do you have combat medic training? I served. Army. It was a long time ago. Cassandra leaned forward slightly, ignoring the pull of her stitches. 3 deployments to Afghanistan, multiple commendations. You could be working as a paramedic, making 3 times what security pays, so why aren't you? Noah's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. With respect, ma'am, I don't see how my employment choices are relevant to you recovering from surgery. They're relevant because I don't like owing people. Cassandra's voice was crisp, businesslike. You saved my life, Mr. Mercer. That creates a debt, and I need to understand what you want in return. The words hung in the air between them like something toxic. Noah stood up slowly, his face carefully blank in the way it got when people made assumptions about who he was or what he wanted. I don't want anything from you, Ms. Vale. I helped because you needed help, and I had the skills to provide it. That's all. Everyone wants something. Not from you, they don't. Noah moved toward the door. I'm glad you're okay. That's all I came to say. Wait. Cassandra's voice cracked slightly, surprising them both. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. Noah paused, his hand on the door handle. I'm not good at this, Cassandra admitted, and for just a moment the corporate armor slipped, revealing something raw underneath. At being vulnerable. At owing people. At not being in control. You saw me at my weakest, and I don't know how to process that except by trying to manage it like a business transaction. Noah turned back, studying her with new eyes. You don't owe me anything, Ms. Vale. Helping people. That's just what you do when you can. It doesn't come with strings attached. In my world, everything comes with strings. Then maybe you're in the wrong world. The words were gentle, but cut deep. Cassandra flinched. Noah sighed and walked back to the chair, sitting down again. Look, I understand you're used to people wanting things from you, but I'm not those people. I have a life that works for me. It's small and quiet and probably seems pathetic from where you're sitting, but it's mine, and I chose it. I don't need your money or your connections or whatever you think people in my position would want from someone in yours. Then what do you want? Cassandra asked quietly. To know that you're going to be okay. That's it. That's all I've ever wanted from any of the people I've helped. Noah's voice was steady, honest. You're alive. You're healing. My part in your story is done. I can go back to my life and you can go back to yours, and we never have to think about each other again. Cassandra felt something twist in her chest. Whether relief or disappointment, she couldn't tell. Just like that? Just like that. What if I want to do something for you anyway? Not because I owe you, but because I'm grateful. Noah shook his head. Gratitude doesn't require payment, Ms. Vale. Please stop calling me that. It's Cassandra. Okay, Cassandra. Noah softened slightly. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I really don't need anything. My life is good. My daughter is healthy and happy. That's enough. Your daughter. Cassandra remembered the file. Lily, right? She's 8? Noah's entire demeanor changed, warming in a way it hadn't before. Yeah, 8 going on 30, the way she acts sometimes. And she spends her nights at the hospital while you work? The warmth evaporated, replaced by defensive tension. She's well cared for. The night staff looks after her. She does her homework, sleeps in the break room. It's not ideal, but it works for us. I wasn't criticizing, I was just... Cassandra paused, choosing words carefully. Trying to understand what you sacrificed to be there for her. It's not a sacrifice when you're gaining something better. Noah's voice was firm. I had a career as a paramedic before Sarah, my wife, died. Good job, good money, terrible hours. I was never home. When Sarah had her aneurysm, I was pulling a double shift across town. Lily was with a babysitter. I didn't get there in time to say goodbye, and Lily was alone with strangers when her mom died. Cassandra's breath caught. So I made a choice, Noah continued quietly. I could keep chasing career advancement and money and all the things society says matter, or I could actually be present for my daughter. I chose her. I'll always choose her. And yeah, that means working security instead of using my medical training, And yeah, it means Lily does homework in cafeterias instead of after-school programs I can't afford. But she has me. Every single day, she has me. That's worth more than any career. The conviction in his voice was absolute, unshakable. Cassandra found herself profoundly unsettled by it, by someone who'd deliberately chosen less instead of more, who'd walked away from potential and achievement for something as intangible as presence. It was everything she'd never understood, everything she'd spent her life proving wasn't necessary. "That's remarkable," she said finally. "It's not remarkable. It's just being a parent." "No," Cassandra insisted. "It's remarkable. Most people wouldn't make that choice. Most people would find a way to justify prioritizing their career. Most people don't lose their spouse and see firsthand what matters." Noah stood again, gentler this time. "I should get going. I'm glad we talked, Cassandra, and I'm really glad you're okay." "Noah?" She stopped him again. "Can I ask you one more thing?" "Sure." "That night in the ER, I was so scared and in so much pain, and I remember begging you to just let it be fast, to let me die." Cassandra's voice dropped. "Why didn't you? Why did you fight so hard for someone you didn't even know?" Noah was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant with memory. "Because I've seen too many people die who wanted to live, who fought for every second, who begged for just one more day with their families. And here you were, alive, savable, with everything ahead of you, and you were ready to give up." He met her eyes. "I couldn't let that happen, not when I had the skills to stop it." "Even though you didn't know if I was a good person? If my life mattered?" "Everyone's life matters," Noah said simply. "That's not a judgment call I get to make. My job, that night and every night I was a medic, was to keep people alive. What they do with that life afterward is up to them." He left before Cassandra could respond, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that felt like an ending. She sat alone in her hospital room, surrounded by the trappings of her success, expensive equipment, important calls, deals to be made, and felt emptier than she had lying broken in that ER. Noah Mercer had saved her life and wanted nothing in return. No payment, no recognition, no advantage. He'd simply helped because he could, then walked away. It was the most incomprehensible thing Cassandra had ever encountered, and somehow it made her feel smaller than any boardroom defeat ever had. Marcus poked his head in an hour later. "How did it go?" "He doesn't want anything," Cassandra said flatly. "Nothing? Nothing. No money, no job, no media exposure. He just wanted to know I was okay. Then he left." Marcus whistled low. "That's either incredibly noble or incredibly stupid in today's economy." "It's neither." Cassandra stared at the door Noah had exited through. "It's someone who knows exactly what matters to him, and it's not what matters to people like us." "People like us?" "People who measure worth in dollars and influence and market share." Cassandra's voice was bitter. "He measures it in being home for his daughter, in being present, in being enough without needing to be more." "You sound almost envious." "Don't be ridiculous." But Cassandra's protest was automatic, unconvincing even to herself. That evening, after Marcus left and the nurses dimmed her lights for sleep, Cassandra lay awake thinking about a combat medic who'd walked away from potential greatness to make pancakes for his daughter. About a man who'd saved her life and considered it just part of being a decent human being. About what it meant to be alive for reasons beyond achievement. The thoughts followed her into uneasy sleep, where she dreamed not of boardrooms and acquisitions, but of a little girl doing homework in a hospital cafeteria, waiting for her father to finish his shift, content with the small, quiet life they'd built together. When Cassandra woke the next morning, her first thought wasn't of Valcor or board meetings or market positions. It was wondering if Noah's daughter liked the pancakes he'd made her, and hating herself for caring about something so completely irrelevant to her world. 2 weeks later, Cassandra was released from the hospital with strict orders to rest and recover. She ignored them immediately, returning to Valcor's headquarters in a car service, climbing the stairs to her penthouse office with gritted teeth and sheer determination. Her executive team hovered nervously as she settled behind her desk, their concern less about her health and more about the power vacuum her absence had created. "Welcome back," Chen said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We've managed quite well in your absence, but of course nothing compares to having you at the helm." Of course, Cassandra echoed, reading the subtext clearly. They'd managed well enough to consider whether they needed her at all. The next 3 weeks were warfare conducted through spreadsheets and strategic decisions, Cassandra proving she was still sharp, still ruthless, still the brilliant CEO who'd built Veilcore from nothing. She worked 16-hour days despite her body's protests, attended every meeting, reviewed every decision made in her absence, and slowly, methodically reasserted absolute control. She buried herself in work and tried not to think about Noah Mercer. She failed consistently. At random moments, during presentations, in board meetings, while reviewing quarterly projections, she'd remember his calm voice in the ER, his absolute certainty that her life mattered regardless of who she was or what she was worth. It haunted her in ways she couldn't explain and refused to examine. Then, 6 weeks after the accident, Nashville Memorial Hospital announced its annual charity gala, a black-tie fundraiser for the new pediatric wing. Veilcore had been a major donor for years, and Cassandra's attendance was expected despite her recent trauma. She almost declined. Then she saw Noah Mercer's name on the event security roster, and something in her chest tightened with an emotion she refused to name. She RSVP'd for two, herself and Marcus, and bought a dress that cost more than Noah probably made in 3 months. The night of the gala, Cassandra stood in Nashville Memorial's transformed lobby, champagne in hand, surrounded by Nashville's wealthy elite, making small talk about charitable giving while mentally calculating tax deductions. This was her world: expensive clothes and expensive wine and expensive people networking in the guise of generosity. She hated every second of it. "Cassandra!" Dr. Patterson appeared at her elbow, beaming. "Wonderful to see you looking so well. How are you feeling?" "Fully recovered, thanks to you." "Well, we both know who really deserves the credit." Patterson's eyes twinkled. "Is he here tonight? Noah?" "He's working security, I believe." "Of course he is. Probably refused the night off even for a gala honoring the hospital that employs him." Patterson shook his head fondly. "That man is something else. Do you know he volunteers at the VA clinic on his days off? Helps other veterans navigate the healthcare system. Uses his medical knowledge to advocate for guys who can't advocate for themselves. And he won't let anyone make a fuss about it." Cassandra absorbed this new information. Adding it to the growing, unwanted portrait of Noah Mercer, she couldn't stop painting in her mind. She was about to respond when screaming erupted from across the lobby. Training and instinct kicked in simultaneously. Cassandra's head snapped toward the commotion, her body already moving before her conscious mind caught up. A crowd had formed near the silent auction tables. Through the gaps between expensive gowns and tuxedos, Cassandra saw a man on the floor, his face purple, his hands clawing at his throat. "He's choking!" someone screamed. "Someone call 911!" "Where's a doctor?" The crowd was panicking, people pulling out phones, others backing away in horror, no one actually helping. Cassandra pushed through the mass of frozen socialites, her heart hammering, and then she saw him. Noah Mercer, in his security uniform, was already kneeling beside the choking man with absolute calm. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, positioning the man preparing to perform the Heimlich maneuver. "Sir, I'm going to help you," Noah said clearly. "Try to stay calm." He wrapped his arms around the man from behind and delivered a sharp thrust upward. Nothing. Another thrust. Still nothing. The man's face was darkening, his eyes rolling back. Noah didn't panic. He adjusted his position and delivered 3 rapid thrusts in succession. A piece of steak shot from the man's mouth and skittered across the marble floor. The man gasped, dragging in air, his color already improving. Noah supported him as he coughed and sputtered, one hand on the man's shoulder, the other checking his pulse. "You're okay," Noah said quietly. "Just breathe. Nice and slow." The paramedics arrived within minutes. The gala was at a hospital, after all. But by then, Noah had the situation completely controlled. He gave them a clear, concise report, helped transfer the patient to a gurney, and started to fade back into the crowd. The crowd that was now staring at him with newfound awareness. "That security guard just saved Mayor Harrison's life," someone whispered. "Who is he?" "Did you see how calm he was?" "Someone should get his name." Cassandra watched Noah's face close down, watched him recognize that his anonymity was about to shatter. watched him glance toward the exit like a trapped animal looking for escape. Their eyes met across the crowd, and something passed between them, a shared understanding of what was about to happen, of how this moment would change the narrative neither of them wanted changed. Then a reporter from the Nashville Banner pushed through the crowd, camera in hand, and Noah's fate was sealed. Sir, can you tell us your name? How did you know what to do? Are you a doctor?" Noah tried to deflect, to redirect attention to the paramedics, but the crowd had scented a story. Within minutes, the whole gala knew that the humble security guard who'd saved Cassandra Vale's life 6 weeks ago had just saved the mayor's life at a charity event. The hero angle the media had tried to construct before exploded into reality. Cassandra stood frozen at the edge of the crowd, watching Noah's discomfort grow as phones came out, as people asked for photos, as his worst nightmare, attention, recognition, disruption to his quiet life, materialized around him. She saw the exact moment he gave up fighting it, when his shoulders dropped in resignation and he accepted that everything was about to change whether he wanted it to or not. And she realized with sudden, piercing clarity that this was her fault. If she hadn't come to the gala, if she hadn't created the initial media interest with her accident, if she hadn't been someone whose life was newsworthy enough to make his heroism into a story. This was the debt she'd tried to avoid, not one she owed to him, but one he'd now pay because of her. Marcus appeared at her elbow. "This is going to be huge. Security guard saves billionaire CEO, then saves mayor at charity gala. Every news outlet in the country will run this story." "I know," Cassandra said quietly, still watching Noah as he was surrounded by grateful strangers and curious socialites. "You should say something. Public thank you. Maybe offer him a reward. Good PR for Valecore." "No." "No?" "He doesn't want this, Marcus. Any of it." Cassandra's jaw set with determination. "Get me out of here, now, and find out where Noah lives." "Why?" "Because I'm going to try to fix what I've broken." But Marcus couldn't get Cassandra out quickly enough. Within 20 minutes of Noah saving Mayor Harrison, 3 local news crews had arrived at the gala, drawn by social media posts already going viral. The headline practically wrote itself, "Hero Security Guard Strikes Again, Saves Mayor After Rescuing Tech CEO." Cassandra found herself cornered by a reporter from Channel 5, microphone thrust in her face, camera light blinding. "Ms. Vale, you were saved by Noah Mercer 6 weeks ago. How does it feel to see him save another life tonight?" Every instinct screamed at Cassandra to deflect, to give a polished corporate response, to protect her privacy and control the narrative. But she looked across the lobby and saw Noah, trapped in his own media scrum, his face a mask of polite misery as reporters fired questions at him. This was her world, cameras and attention and public performance. It was his nightmare, and she dragged him into it simply by being someone whose life was newsworthy enough to matter. "It feels humbling," Cassandra heard herself say, the words honest in a way that surprised her. Noah Mercer is an extraordinary person who goes through life helping others without seeking recognition. What you saw tonight, that's just who he is. He doesn't do it for attention or reward. He does it because he believes every life matters, and he has the skills to make a difference. There are rumors that you've offered him a position at Valecore. There are no such rumors because I've made no such offer," Cassandra interrupted firmly. "Mr. Mercer has a life and a career he's chosen deliberately. The best thing any of us can do is respect his choices and his privacy instead of treating his basic human decency like it's some kind of spectacle." The reporter blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm still recovering from major surgery and need to leave." Cassandra moved past the reporter with the authority of someone used to ending conversations on her own terms. Marcus caught up with her at the exit. "That was either brilliant or catastrophic for our PR. I can't tell which." "I don't care which," Cassandra said shortly. "Did you get his address?" "Yeah, but Cassandra showing up at his home uninvited. I'm not asking your opinion, Marcus. I'm asking if you got the address." He sighed and pulled out his phone. "Third-floor apartment on Meridian Street. But he's still inside dealing with the media circus." "Then we wait." They waited in Cassandra's car service for 40 minutes before Noah finally emerged from the gala, still in his security uniform, his face exhausted in the way that came from forced social interaction rather than physical labor. He walked to the employee parking lot with his head down, clearly hoping to avoid any lingering reporters. "Follow him," Cassandra instructed her driver. Marcus looked uncomfortable. "This feels like stalking. This feels like taking responsibility." They followed Noah's ancient Honda through Nashville's streets to a neighborhood that made Marcus visibly nervous. Buildings with peeling paint and barred windows, streetlights that flickered or didn't work at all. The urban geography of people living paycheck to paycheck. Noah parked in front of a 3-story walk-up that had probably been nice in the 1970s and hadn't seen maintenance since. He sat in his car for a long moment, head resting on the steering wheel, before finally climbing out and heading inside. Cassandra watched him disappear into the building and felt something crack in her chest. This was where he lived. This was the life he'd chosen over career advancement, over using his skills for profit, over anything resembling the success she'd spent her entire life chasing. Not because he was lazy or unambitious, but because this building was close to Lily's school, because the rent was cheap enough that he could afford it on security wages, because being present for his daughter mattered more than living somewhere nice. "We should go," Marcus said quietly. "He's had enough intrusion for one night." "No." Cassandra opened her car door. "I need to talk to him." "Cassandra!" But she was already out of the car, crossing the cracked sidewalk to the building's entrance. The security door hung slightly ajar, the lock broken. She climbed 3 flights of stairs, noting the stained carpet and flickering hallway lights, until she found apartment 3C. She raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. What was she doing here? What could she possibly say that would fix the exposure she'd inadvertently caused him? Before she could decide, the door opened. Noah stood there in sweatpants and an old army t-shirt, clearly about to take out the trash, and froze when he saw her. "Cassandra." He looked past her down the hallway as if checking for cameras. "What are you doing here?" "I came to apologize." "For what?" "For tonight. For the media attention. For making your life more complicated just by existing in it." The words tumbled out faster than Cassandra intended. "You saved my life and asked for nothing, and in return I've made you into some kind of public spectacle. So, I'm sorry." Noah stared at her for a long moment, then stepped back. "You better come inside before the neighbors start gossiping about the billionaire in the hallway." His apartment was small and immaculately clean, furnished with mismatched pieces that looked like thrift store finds. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator, and a bookshelf sagged under the weight of medical textbooks Noah probably hadn't opened in years. Everything about the space screamed making do, making it work, making sacrifices for something more important than comfort. "Dad?" A small voice came from the hallway. "Is someone here?" Lily appeared in the doorway wearing flannel pajamas, her blonde hair in a messy braid, her eyes going wide when she saw Cassandra. "Lily, this is Ms. Vale," Noah said gently. "The lady I helped at the hospital a few weeks ago. She just came by to say hello." "You're really pretty," Lily blurted out, then looked embarrassed. "Sorry, that was weird." Cassandra found herself smiling genuinely for the first time in weeks. "Thank you. You're pretty beautiful yourself." "I'm supposed to be asleep," Lily admitted, "but I wanted to hear about Dad saving the mayor. Everyone at school is going to think it's so cool." Something painful crossed Noah's face. "Lilybug, we talked about this. What I did tonight isn't anything special. I just helped someone who needed help." "But you're a hero. That's what everyone's saying." "I'm your dad," Noah corrected firmly. "That's the only thing that matters. Now back to bed, okay?" Lily hugged him goodnight, then surprised Cassandra by hugging her too before scampering back to her bedroom. Noah waited until he heard her door click shut before turning to Cassandra. "You didn't need to come all the way here to apologize. A phone call would have been fine." "Would it? Because you strike me as the type who'd say everything was fine and hang up, then deal with whatever fallout alone." Cassandra moved to the window, looking out at the street below where her expensive car sat like a spaceship from another planet. "I meant what I told that reporter. You deserve privacy and respect. But I also know how media works, especially when there's a compelling narrative. This story, humble hero with military background saves powerful CEO, then saves mayor at charity gala. It's got everything they want. They're not going to let it go quietly." I know. Noah's voice was heavy with resignation. I've already gotten 3 calls from morning shows wanting me to appear, 2 from book agents asking if I'd be interested in writing my story, and 1 from some producer wanting to option my life rights for a TV movie. What did you tell them? That I'm not interested, that my life isn't a story, that I just want to be left alone to do my job and raise my daughter. He laughed bitterly. They think I'm playing hard to get, trying to drive up the price. Cassandra turned from the window. What if I could make it stop? How? You're part of why it started. The accusation was gentle but accurate. Cassandra absorbed it without flinching. I could hold a press conference, give them the story they want, thank you publicly, acknowledge what you did, satisfy their hunger for narrative closure, then ask them to respect your privacy as a single father who's just trying to live his life. It might not stop everything, but it could redirect attention away from you. Or it could make things worse, make me seem even more interesting because I'm refusing attention, create this whole mystery around why a hero doesn't want recognition. Noah shook his head. There's no good answer here, Cassandra. Sometimes you just have to ride out the storm and hope people get bored and move on. Is that what you did after Afghanistan? Just waited for people to stop caring about what you'd done there? Noah's expression shuddered. That was different. How? Because over there, I was part of something bigger. I was a medic doing my job in a war zone, surrounded by people doing equally important work. The guys I saved weren't strangers at charity galas. They were brothers in arms. And when we came home, nobody cared about us anyway. No press conferences, no morning show interviews, just a handshake and a thanks for your service and move along. The old pain in his voice was evident. This celebrity hero nonsense. This isn't what I signed up for, not in the army and not now. Cassandra sat down on his threadbare couch, uninvited, suddenly exhausted. I don't know how to fix this. I want to, but I don't know how. You can't fix it, Noah said, not unkindly. Some things you just have to accept and adapt to. I'm not good at accepting things I can't control. Yeah, I got that impression. He sat down in the armchair across from her, studying her face. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you care? Really? You thanked me. You tried to pay me back. I refused. Most people would wash their hands of it and move on. But you're here, in my apartment at 10 o'clock at night, apologizing for media attention that isn't actually your fault. Why? Cassandra was quiet for a long moment, trying to articulate something she barely understood herself. Because you saw me at my worst, broken and bleeding and begging to die. And you treated me like I mattered, not because of who I am or what I'm worth, but just because I was a person who needed help. Nobody's treated me like that in years. Maybe ever. That's just basic human decency. Not in my world it isn't. In my world, every interaction is transactional. Every relationship is strategic. Every kindness comes with expectations. She met his eyes. You didn't expect anything. You just helped because you could, and then you walked away. It's the most incomprehensible thing I've ever experienced, and I can't stop thinking about it. That sounds exhausting, Noah said quietly. Living in a world where you can't trust anyone's motives. It's necessary. You don't build a billion-dollar company by assuming people have good intentions. No, I guess you don't. Noah leaned back in his chair. But you also don't build a life worth living that way. The words hit Cassandra like a slap. You think my life isn't worth living? I think you were ready to die in that ER, Noah said bluntly. I think when you were in the worst pain of your life, facing what you thought was the end, your first instinct was to ask me to make it fast. Not to fight, not to survive, just to get it over with. That tells me something about how much you actually value the life you've built. Cassandra stood up abruptly, anger flashing through her. You don't know anything about my life. You're right, I don't. But I know what it looks like when someone's given up. I saw it in soldiers with depression, in wounded fighters who'd lost their will to survive, in people who were technically alive but spiritually dead. And I saw it in your eyes that night. Noah stood too, his voice gentle despite the harsh truth he was speaking. You've achieved everything society says matters, and you were ready to let it all go in a heartbeat. So forgive me for questioning whether your version of success is actually working for you. How dare you? Dad? Lily's voice, small and scared, came from the hallway. Why are you yelling? Both adults froze. Noah's face immediately softened as he turned toward his daughter. We're not yelling, Bug. Just having a grown-up conversation that got a little loud. Everything's okay. Lily looked between them uncertainly, then focused on Cassandra. Are you mad at my dad? No, Cassandra said, forcing her voice to calm. No, sweetie. Your dad just said something that was hard to hear, but he wasn't wrong to say it. Dad always tells the truth, Lily said seriously. Even when it's hard. He says that's what heroes do. I'm not a hero, Lily, Noah said automatically. Yes, you are. Lily's voice was absolutely certain. You save people. That makes you a hero. I help people. There's a difference. What's the difference? Noah knelt down to his daughter's eye level. Heroes are brave and strong and special. I'm just regular. I just do what anyone should do when someone needs help. But not everyone does help, Lily argued with 8-year-old logic. Mrs. Chen says lots of people walked past the mayor when he was choking, but you didn't. You helped him. That's being a hero. Cassandra watched this exchange with something breaking open in her chest. This little girl, in her 2 small pajamas in this cramped apartment, believed so completely in her father's goodness. And Noah, who'd saved countless lives and asked nothing in return, genuinely didn't see himself as anything special. The contrast to her own self-perception, brilliant CEO, self-made billionaire, someone whose worth was measured in market capitalization and media coverage, was almost painful. Lilybug, back to bed for real this time, Noah said gently. Ms. Vale is about to leave. Okay. Lily hugged her father, then turned to Cassandra. I'm glad my dad saved you. You seem nice. I'm glad he saved me too, Cassandra said, surprised to find she meant it completely. After Lily disappeared again, Noah walked Cassandra to the door. They stood in the doorway, the silence between them heavy with things neither quite knew how to say. I'm sorry I yelled, Cassandra said finally. You were right, about all of it. I shouldn't have been so blunt. Yes, you should have. Someone needed to be. She looked past him into the apartment, at the life he'd built from sacrifice and love and being present. Your daughter is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. Cassandra started to leave, then turned back. Noah? When you told me to live better in the hospital, what did you mean? Noah considered the question carefully. I meant that being alive and having a life worth living are 2 different things. You survived the accident, but that's just biology. Actually living, finding meaning, connecting with people, doing things that matter for reasons beyond ambition, that's the harder part. That's the part you have to choose every day. And you think I'm not choosing it? I think you're letting your success define you instead of you defining your success. There's a difference. Cassandra nodded slowly, absorbing this. Thank you for your honesty. For what it's worth, I hope the media leaves you alone too. What happened tonight, it wasn't any more your fault than mine. We were just 2 people in the wrong place at the wrong time for privacy. Or the right place at the right time for Mayor Harrison? Noah smiled slightly. Yeah, there's that. Cassandra left his building and returned to her car where Marcus waited, scrolling through his phone. That took a while, he said as she slid into the back seat. Drive, she told the driver, then turned to Marcus. I need you to dig into Noah Mercer's background. Everything. His army service, his deployments, his commendations. I want to understand what he gave up to work security. Why? Because he's right about me, about my life, about what matters. Cassandra looked out the window at Nashville's skyline. And I need to understand how someone walks away from being exceptional to be present. You're not thinking of walking away from Valcor. No, but I'm thinking about why I built it and whether I'd be willing to die for it or if I was just ready to die that night because I'd already lost sight of why living mattered. She met Marcus's concerned gaze. Just get me the information. The next morning, Noah woke to his phone ringing off the hook. The local news had run the gala story as their lead, complete with security footage of him saving Mayor Harrison and interview clips with witnesses calling him a hero. National morning shows had picked it up. Social media was exploding with the hashtag #SecurityGuard. Hero trending nationwide. His quiet life was officially over. He made Lily breakfast while ignoring 17 new voicemails, drove her to school while ducking questions from other parents who'd seen the news, and arrived at the hospital for his shift to find a news van parked outside and Sandra waiting for him at the employee entrance. "You're famous," she said without preamble. "Hospital administration wants to meet with you." "I'm sure they do," Noah said tiredly. "Let me guess. They want me to do interviews, be their poster boy for Nashville Memorial's commitment to excellence, or some PR nonsense." "Actually, they want to promote you, offer you a position in hospital training, teaching emergency response protocols. Better pay, day shift, benefits that might actually let you afford childcare." Noah stopped walking. "What?" "The board met this morning. Between you saving Cassandra Vale and the mayor, both incidents on hospital property, they're getting incredible publicity. They want to capitalize on it by making you more visible in a medical capacity." Sandra handed him a folder. "It's all in there. Job description, salary, which is almost double what security pays, schedule flexibility, the works." Noah opened the folder with shaking hands and stared at numbers that would fundamentally change his life. Real health insurance for Lily, enough money to move to a safer neighborhood, a job that actually used his skills. Everything he'd given up 4 years ago, being offered back because he'd become a media story. "There's a catch, isn't there?" he said slowly. Sandra nodded. "They want you to be the face of their new emergency preparedness campaign. Some interviews, some public appearances. Nothing overwhelming, but definitely more visibility than you're comfortable with. So I sell my privacy and Lily's privacy in exchange for a better life." "I wouldn't put it that way." "How would you put it?" Sandra sighed. "Look, Noah, I know you value your quiet life, but Lily's growing up. She's going to need things. Orthodontia, school activities, eventually college. You can't provide those things on what security pays, and you know it. This opportunity, it's not ideal, but it's real. It's a chance to give her more without sacrificing being present for her." Noah closed the folder. "I need to think about it. Hospital admin needs an answer by Friday. Then they'll have one Friday." He went through his shift on autopilot, his mind churning. Everything Sandra said was true. He couldn't give Lily the life she deserved on security wages. He'd always known that, had accepted it as the price of being present. But now there was an option, a real way forward, and all it cost was the anonymity he'd fought so hard to preserve. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Noah sat at his kitchen table with the hospital's offer spread in front of him and tried to figure out what the right choice was. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I heard about the hospital's offer. Whatever you decide, make sure you're choosing for the right reasons. Don't let anyone, including me, make you feel like your quiet life wasn't enough. Cassandra." Noah stared at the message, wondering how she'd gotten his number, how she'd heard about the offer, and why she cared what he decided. Then he thought about what she'd asked him. What did live better actually mean? He told her to find meaning beyond ambition, to connect with people, to choose a life worth living every day. Now he had to figure out if he was following his own advice or if he'd been hiding in anonymity because choosing to be exceptional again scared him more than he wanted to admit. The answer didn't come that night, or the next day, or even by Thursday evening when he was supposed to give the hospital his decision in 12 hours. It came Friday morning when Lily asked him at breakfast, "Dad, are you going to take the new job?" "How do you know about that?" "I heard you talking to Miss Sandra, and kids at school said you're going to be on TV." She pushed her cereal around her bowl. "Are you?" "Maybe. The hospital offered me a job teaching people emergency medicine. It pays better and has better hours, but it means being more public, being recognized, having less privacy." He studied his daughter's face. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should do what makes you happy," Lily said seriously. "You're always telling me that being good at something means you should use it to help people. You're really good at saving people, Dad. Maybe you should do more of that." Out of the mouths of babes, Noah thought. His 8-year-old daughter had just articulated what he'd been dancing around for days. He'd walked away from combat medicine not because he didn't love it, but because the cost, being absent from Lily's life, was too high. But this new job didn't require that sacrifice. It let him use his skills and be present. The only thing it cost was the comfortable invisibility he'd been hiding behind, calling it sacrifice when maybe it was just fear. Fear of being seen, fear of being exceptional, fear of failing again the way he'd failed to be there when Sarah died. Noah pulled out his phone and called the hospital administrator. "I'll take the job," he said. On one condition, my daughter's privacy is non-negotiable. I'll do the interviews and public appearances, but Lily stays out of it completely. Her face, her name, her school, all of that is off limits." "We can agree to that," the administrator said, relief evident in her voice. "Welcome to your new position, Mr. Mercer." Noah hung up and looked at Lily, who was watching him with shining eyes. "You took it?" "I took it." She launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I'm so proud of you, Dad." "I'm proud of you too, Bug, for being brave enough to sleep in hospital cafeterias and never once complaining about our life." "Our life is good," Lily said firmly. "It's going to be even better now, but it was already good." Noah held his daughter and felt something shift in his chest, the weight of years of guilt and fear lifting slightly, making room for something that felt dangerously like hope. He'd chosen to be seen again, to be exceptional instead of invisible. He just hoped he was strong enough to handle what came next. The news of Noah's promotion spread through Nashville Memorial within hours, and by Monday morning, when he reported for his first day in the new position, he discovered that accepting visibility came with consequences he hadn't fully anticipated. A camera crew from the local news station waited in the lobby. Hospital PR had arranged a brief interview about his new role without telling him first. Noah stood there in the pressed shirt he'd bought specifically for this job, feeling ambushed and angry. But Sandra caught his eye from across the lobby and mouthed, "Just breathe," with such genuine sympathy that he forced himself to calm down. 5 minutes. He could handle 5 minutes. "Mr. Mercer, congratulations on your promotion," the reporter began, her smile bright and practiced. "Our viewers remember you as the hero who saved CEO Cassandra Vale and Mayor Harrison. Now you're taking on a training role. What does that mean for Nashville Memorial?" Noah chose his words carefully, hyper-aware of every camera phone pointed his direction. "It means the hospital is committed to ensuring all staff have the emergency response training to handle crisis situations. My job is to teach those protocols and make sure everyone feels confident stepping in when someone needs help." "So you're teaching people to be heroes like you?" "I'm teaching people to be prepared," Noah corrected firmly. "What I did wasn't heroic, it was trained response. Anyone with the right knowledge and practice can do the same thing. But not everyone would step up the way you did. I think you'd be surprised how many people would help if they knew how," Noah interrupted, his voice pleasant but immovable. "That's what this training is about, empowering people to act instead of freeze." The reporter tried a few more angles, clearly fishing for emotional sound bites about heroism and sacrifice, but Noah deflected each one with the same steady refusal to be turned into a story. After 6 minutes, she thanked him, and the crew packed up, looking vaguely disappointed that he hadn't given them better material. Sandra appeared at his elbow as soon as they left. "You did good, kept it professional, didn't give them anything to sensationalize." "I hated every second of that." "I know, but it's done now, and you can focus on the actual work." She handed him a schedule. "Your first training session is Wednesday with the new nursing staff. Until then, you're shadowing Dr. Patterson to observe current emergency protocols and identify gaps." Noah looked at the schedule and felt something ease in his chest. This part he understood. Teaching, training, preparing people to save lives. This was familiar territory. The media circus would fade eventually. The actual work would remain. He spent Monday and Tuesday immersed in protocol reviews, sitting in on trauma cases, and developing his training curriculum. It felt like coming home to a part of himself he'd locked away, and the rightness of it surprised him. He'd convinced himself that walking away from medicine was necessary, that choosing Lily meant giving this up completely. But Sandra had been right. He could do both. He could use his skills and be present for his daughter. Wednesday morning arrived with his first official training session. 25 new nursing staff members filled the conference room, their faces a mix of eagerness and exhaustion that Noah recognized from his own early days in combat medicine. He stood at the front of the room and felt the old teaching instincts kick in. My name is Noah Mercer, he began, skipping the titles and credentials that always felt awkward. 4 years ago, I was working security in this hospital because it let me be home for my daughter. Last week, I saved someone's life at a charity gala, and because of the media attention that followed, I'm standing here now with the chance to teach you what I learned in 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan. The room was silent, attentive. Here's what I want you to understand from the start. Heroism is not a prerequisite for saving lives. Knowledge is. Training is. The willingness to act when everyone else freezes is. Those things can be taught, can be practiced, can become instinct. That's what we're going to do together. He spent the next 4 hours walking them through emergency response protocols, demonstrating techniques on mannequins, running scenarios that forced them to think quickly and act decisively. He pushed them hard but fairly, the way his own combat instructors had pushed him. And by the end of the session, every person in that room looked at him with respect that had nothing to do with media coverage and everything to do with genuine competence. As the nurses filed out, a young woman lingered behind. Her name tag read Chen J, and Noah recognized the last name. "You're related to Mrs. Chen in radiology?" "She's my aunt," the young nurse said. "She talks about you all the time. How you'd sit with your daughter in the cafeteria, how you were always kind to the night staff, how you never acted like security work was beneath you." "It wasn't beneath me. It was exactly what I needed at the time." "My aunt says you're proof that real strength is knowing when to step back and when to step forward." The young nurse smiled. "She's really proud that you're stepping forward again." After she left, Noah sat alone in the empty conference room and thought about Mrs. Chen, who'd brought Lily hot chocolate on countless nights without being asked, who'd never made him feel ashamed for bringing his child to work, who'd seen him at his most vulnerable and treated him with dignity anyway. People had been watching all along, he realized. He'd thought he was invisible in his security uniform, but he'd been seen. Known. Valued for the small, quiet ways he'd moved through the world. Maybe being visible now wasn't as terrifying as he'd imagined. Maybe it was just a different kind of being seen. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily, sent from her school's office phone. "Dad, Mrs. Thompson said you were on the news teaching doctors. Everyone thinks it's so cool." Noah smiled and typed back. "Nurses, not doctors. And it's just my job, Bug. See you after school." But even as he downplayed it, he felt something like pride warming his chest. His daughter was proud of him. His colleagues respected him. He was using his skills to help people again. Maybe Sandra had been right. Maybe this opportunity, for all its uncomfortable visibility, was exactly what he and Lily both needed. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm. Noah taught morning training sessions, consulted on complex trauma cases in the afternoon, and still made it home by 4 to pick Lily up from school. The pay increase meant he could finally afford after-school care, but Lily had grown attached to her routine of coming to the hospital, and Noah discovered he liked having her nearby while he worked his new schedule. She'd sit in his office, an actual office now, small, but his, doing homework while he reviewed training materials. Sometimes she'd ask questions about what he was teaching, and Noah would explain emergency medicine in 8-year-old terms, watching her eyes light up with fascination. "Could I be a doctor someday?" Lily asked one afternoon, carefully coloring in a picture of the human circulatory system she'd found in one of Noah's textbooks. "You can be anything you want to be, Bug. Doctor, scientist, artist, teacher, whatever makes you happy and lets you help people." "I want to help people like you do." Noah's throat tightened. "Then you'll be amazing at it." Friday of his second week, Noah arrived at work to find an unexpected visitor waiting outside his office. Cassandra Vale stood in the hallway wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, looking completely out of place among the hospital's industrial carpeting and fluorescent lights. "Cassandra." He unlocked his office door, gesturing her inside. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see how you were settling into the new position." She entered his office and looked around at the organized chaos of training manuals, medical journals, and Lily's drawings taped to the wall. "It suits you. This office." "It's a closet with a desk, but yeah, I like it." Noah stayed standing, unsure why her presence made him nervous. "How are you, back at Valecore full-time?" 16-hour days, 6 days a week, living the dream," Cassandra said with a wry smile. "I came to thank you, actually." For what? I'm the one who should be thanking you for the advice about taking this job. For being right about me. About my life. Cassandra sat down in the chair across from his desk without being invited, and Noah noticed she looked different somehow, tired still, but the exhaustion seemed less existential than before. After I left your apartment that night, I spent 3 weeks examining everything about how I've built my career and my life. It wasn't pretty what I found. Noah sat down slowly. What did you find? That I've been so focused on success that I forgot to build anything worth succeeding at. I have a company worth billions, and not a single person who'd visit me in the hospital out of genuine affection rather than professional obligation. I have power and influence and the respect of my industry, and I was ready to die in an ER because none of it felt like enough to keep living for. She met his eyes. You have a daughter who lights up when you walk in the room, colleagues who genuinely like you, a community that values you. You're rich in every way that actually matters, and I'm poor despite my bank account. Cassandra, I'm not looking for pity or reassurance. I'm telling you this because you were brave enough to tell me hard truths, and I needed to acknowledge that you were right. She pulled an envelope from her purse. I also came to offer you something, and I need you to hear me out before you refuse. Noah eyed the envelope warily. I'm not taking money from you. It's not money. It's a proposal. Cassandra placed the envelope on his desk. Valcor has been planning to launch a corporate wellness initiative, emergency response training for all employees, health and safety protocols, that kind of thing. We need someone to develop and lead the program. Someone with real experience, real teaching ability, and real credibility. You want to hire me away from the hospital? No, I want to contract with you as a consultant. You'd keep your hospital position and work with Valcor on a flexible schedule that fits around your teaching and your time with Lily. The compensation would be significant, enough to move to a better neighborhood, save for Lily's college, have actual financial security, but more importantly, you'd be building something that could scale. Training protocols that could be implemented across multiple companies, potentially saving lives beyond just this hospital. Noah picked up the envelope but didn't open it. Why me? Because you're the only person I trust to do it right. Everyone else I could hire would see it as a resume builder or a networking opportunity. You'd see it as a chance to actually help people. That's the difference. And this has nothing to do with you still feeling like you owe me? It has everything to do with that, Cassandra admitted. But not in the way you think. I don't owe you money or career advancement. I owe you the example you set, choosing to live better, to use your skills for meaning rather than just profit, to build something that matters. This initiative was already in development, but meeting you changed how I'm approaching it. I want to do it right, which means hiring someone who actually cares about the work rather than the paycheck. Noah opened the envelope and scanned the proposal. The numbers were staggering, more than double his hospital salary for what amounted to consulting work a few days a month. It would change his life, Lily's life, their entire future. This is too much, he said quietly. It's market rate for someone with your experience developing training for a Fortune 500 company. Actually, it's probably less than market rate, but I knew you'd balk if I offered more. Cassandra leaned forward. Noah, I know you're not motivated by money, but Lily's going to need orthodontia and music lessons if she wants them, and summer camps, and eventually college. You can provide those things while still being present for her if you take this offer. It's not either or anymore. You investigated my daughter's dental situation? I investigated your life because I needed to understand what you'd sacrificed. Don't be angry. Be pragmatic. This opportunity lets you have both the career you walked away from and the presence you chose. Why would you refuse that? Noah stared at the proposal, his mind racing. Everything Cassandra said made sense. The compensation was fair for the work. The schedule was flexible. It would give Lily opportunities he'd never been able to afford before. And yet something in him resisted, some part that whispered this was too much, too fast, too close to the world Cassandra inhabited, the transactional, strategic world where kindness came with contracts attached. I need to think about it, he said finally. Of course. Take 2 weeks. Talk to Lily. Consult with anyone you trust. But Noah? Cassandra stood to leave. Don't refuse this out of pride or principle. Refuse it if it's genuinely wrong for you and Lily. But if you're just scared of accepting something good because you think you don't deserve it, then you're not living better either. She left before he could respond, and Noah sat alone with the proposal spread across his desk, wondering if she was right. That evening, he showed the offer to Lily while they ate spaghetti at their tiny kitchen table. "This lady wants you to teach her company emergency medicine?" Lily asked, reading the simplified explanation he'd written for her. "Yeah, it would mean working a few extra days a month, but the money would let us move to a nicer apartment, maybe with a yard. You could take art classes if you wanted, or music, or anything you're interested in. Would you still pick me up from school? Every single day. Would you still help me with my homework?" "Of course." "Then I think you should do it," Lily said simply. "Ms. Vale seems nice, and you're really good at teaching people. You should teach more people." Out of the mouths of babes, Noah thought again. His daughter had cut through all his complicated resistance to the simple truth. This was good work that helped people, and he was capable of doing it while still being present for her. The fear was his own, not hers. The resistance was about his discomfort with Cassandra's world, not about what was actually best for his family. He called Cassandra that night after Lily went to bed. "I'll do it," he said when she answered, "with one condition." "Name it." I need complete autonomy over the program design. You can give me parameters and goals, but I decide how to meet them. I won't build something that's just for show or PR. It has to actually work, actually save lives, actually matter." "Agreed. I wouldn't want it any other way." He could hear the smile in her voice. "Welcome to Valcor, Noah." "I'm not joining Valcor. I'm consulting for Valcor. There's a difference." "Right. Of course. Consulting." She paused. "Thank you, Noah, for saying yes. Thank you for offering something that actually fits my life instead of asking me to change my life to fit the opportunity." After they hung up, Noah looked around his small apartment, at Lily's drawings on the fridge, at the thrift store furniture, at the life he'd built from sacrifice and love, and felt the future shifting into something bigger without losing what mattered most. He could do this. He could be exceptional and present, visible and grounded, successful and still himself. He just had to trust that the foundation he'd built with Lily was strong enough to support growth instead of being threatened by it. The next morning, Noah walked into Nashville Memorial for his regular Saturday training session and found Sandra waiting with a knowing smile. "Heard you're consulting for Valcor now, moving up in the world, Mercer. How did you already hear about that?" "Hospital gossip moves faster than any emergency protocol. Half the staff thinks you're brilliant for leveraging your publicity into real opportunities. The other half thinks you sold out to corporate interests." She grinned. "I think you're just a guy who's finally letting himself have nice things." "It's not about nice things. It's about providing for Lily." "I know, but Noah, you're allowed to want things for yourself too. Career satisfaction, financial security, respect for your expertise. Those aren't selfish desires. They're reasonable goals for someone as talented as you are." Noah started to deflect, then stopped himself. Sandra was right. He'd spent 4 years defining himself entirely through fatherhood, through sacrifice, through being small enough to fit Lily's needs. But Lily needed a father who modeled ambition and growth too, not just service and sacrifice. "You're right," he admitted. "I'm still learning how to do both. Be present and be ambitious." "You'll figure it out. You're good at impossible things." Sandra handed him the morning's training roster. "Now go teach these residents how to save lives. That's what you're actually good at." The training session went well, and afterward Noah spent the afternoon consulting with Dr. Patterson about trauma protocols that could be adapted for corporate settings. By the time he picked Lily up from her friend's house, he'd sketched out a preliminary framework for the Valcor program that excited him more than any work had in years. "Dad, you're smiling," Lily observed from the back seat. "Like, really smiling. Did something good happen?" "Yeah, Bug. Something good is happening. I'm remembering what it feels like to do work I love while still having time for you." "That's good, Dad. You deserve to be happy." Noah met her eyes in the rearview mirror and felt his heart swell. "So do you, Lilybug. And we're going to build a life where we both are." 2 weeks later, Noah presented his preliminary Valcor training program at a meeting in their downtown headquarters. He stood in a glass-walled conference room on the 43rd floor, surrounded by executives in expensive suits, and delivered his proposal with the same straightforward competence he brought to teaching nursing students. Cassandra sat at the head of the table, and Noah noticed she'd lost the brittle edge she'd carried in the hospital. She looked healthier, more rested, more genuinely present than he'd ever seen her. When he finished, the room erupted in questions and discussion. Noah fielded them calmly, explaining his methodology, defending his choices, and refusing to water down the program's rigor to make it more convenient for busy executives. "This training will require real-time investment," he said firmly when one VP suggested condensing the curriculum. "You can't learn emergency response in a one-hour webinar. If Valcor is serious about employee safety, you have to be serious about proper training. Otherwise, this is just performative wellness, and I'm not interested in building that." Cassandra's smile was approving. "Agreed. We'll allocate whatever time the program needs to be effective. What else?" They spent another hour hammering out details, and by the end of the meeting, Noah had commitments for quarterly training sessions, equipment budget, and full support from leadership. He walked out of Valcor with a signed contract that would fundamentally change his family's financial situation. Cassandra walked him to the elevator. "You were impressive in there. Didn't let them bully you into compromising your standards." "I learned from watching you, actually. In the hospital, when you were working from your bed, you didn't accept anything less than what you knew was right, even while recovering from major surgery." "I was probably being unreasonable." "You were being uncompromising. There's a difference. Sometimes unreasonable is what's needed to get things done right." The elevator arrived and Noah stepped inside, but Cassandra stopped the doors from closing. "Noah, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Do you think people can actually change, like fundamentally shift who they are and how they live?" Noah thought about his own journey, from combat medic to security guard to trainer and consultant, from hiding in anonymity to accepting visibility, from defining himself only through sacrifice to allowing himself ambition too. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think people can change if they're brave enough to examine what isn't working and humble enough to try something different. But the change has to come from inside, from genuinely wanting a better life, not just from external pressure or expectation." "What if you're not sure what a better life looks like?" "Then you start small. You find one thing that brings you joy or meaning or peace, and you build from there. You don't have to redesign everything at once. You just have to be willing to try something new." Cassandra nodded slowly, absorbing this. "Thank you for this program, for your honesty, for being patient with my learning curve about what actually matters. Thank you for creating space for me to use my skills without sacrificing time with Lily. That's rarer than you'd think." The elevator doors closed and Noah rode down to the lobby, feeling like he'd just navigated something more significant than a business meeting. Cassandra was searching for something. Meaning, purpose, connection. He wasn't sure. And somehow their unlikely friendship born from trauma had become part of her journey. He hoped she found what she was looking for. She'd saved his career by offering this opportunity. The least he could do was offer her the same honesty and support she'd shown him. The following weeks blurred together in productive chaos. Noah balanced hospital training, Valcor program development, and time with Lily with the careful precision of someone who'd learned hard lessons about presence and priority. It was exhausting but satisfying in ways his security job had never been. Lily thrived too. The financial breathing room meant Noah could afford to say yes when she asked about art classes or field trips or new books. Small things, but they added up to a childhood with more possibility and less scarcity. One Saturday afternoon, Noah picked Lily up from her new art class and found Cassandra waiting outside the community center, leaning against her car with unexpected nervousness. "Cassandra?" Noah approached cautiously. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk to you about something, and I thought maybe we could take a walk, if you have time." Noah glanced at Lily, who was covered in paint and grinning. "Is ice cream involved in this walk?" "Ice cream can definitely be involved." They walked 3 blocks to a local shop, and Noah bought Lily a cone before settling her at a table with her sketchbook while he and Cassandra sat outside on the patio. "So what's this about?" Noah asked. Cassandra was quiet for a moment, watching Lily through the window as she drew with total absorption. "I've been thinking about what you said, about starting small, finding one thing that brings meaning and building from there." "Okay. I want to do something real with Valcor's resources. Something beyond just emergency training, beyond just corporate wellness. I want to build something that actually helps people who need it most. She turned to face him. I want your help figuring out what that looks like. Noah studied her carefully. This is about more than just corporate social responsibility, isn't it? It's about trying to live better, like you told me to. About using what I have to create something that matters. You're doing that, using your skills to help people, raising your daughter to be kind and thoughtful, building a life with real meaning. I want that too, but I don't know how. My only skill is building companies and making money. How do I turn that into something worth living for? The vulnerability in her voice was raw, genuine. This wasn't CEO Cassandra Vale asking for consulting advice. This was a woman who'd nearly died asking someone who'd saved her how to make her survival actually mean something. You're asking the wrong question, Noah said gently. It's not about turning your skills into meaning. It's about recognizing what you care about and using your skills to support that. What do you actually care about, Cassandra? Not what you think you should care about, or what looks good for Valecor's image. What keeps you up at night wishing things were different? Cassandra was quiet for so long, Noah thought she might not answer. Then she said softly, children who fall through the cracks, kids like Lily who have loving parents doing their best, but society makes it unnecessarily hard. Single parents working multiple jobs and still not making enough. Families one medical emergency away from financial ruin. That little girl spending her nights in a hospital cafeteria because her father can't afford childcare. That shouldn't happen in the richest country in the world. And I hate that it does. Noah felt something shift in his chest. Then that's where you start. Find a way to use Valecor's resources to support families like mine. Not charity, but actual structural support that lets parents work and be present. How? I don't know yet, but I know it starts with actually listening to people who live these realities instead of making assumptions about what they need. Noah gestured toward Lily. Talk to single parents. Ask them what would actually help. Then build that, even if it's not flashy or good for PR. Cassandra followed his gaze to Lily, still absorbed in her drawing, and Noah saw something crack in her carefully maintained composure. I never wanted children, Cassandra admitted quietly. I was too focused on building Valecor, too committed to my career. But watching you with Lily, seeing how you've built your entire life around being present for her, I wonder if I missed something important. You're 35. It's not too late if you decide you want that. It's not about having children. It's about having anyone who matters more than my company, anyone I'd sacrifice for the way you sacrifice for Lily. My entire life is Valecor, and when I almost died, I realized how empty that was. Success without anyone to share it with, achievement without anyone who cares beyond what it means for stock prices. Noah understood then what Cassandra was really asking for, not business advice or program development. Connection, meaning, someone who saw her as more than her net worth or her corporate accomplishments. You're lonely, he said simply. Profoundly, Cassandra admitted, and I have no idea how to fix it. Every relationship I've built has been transactional. Every friend is actually a business contact. Even this, she gestured between them, started because you saved my life, and I tried to make it a debt to be repaid. But it's not that anymore, Noah pointed out. You're not here because you owe me. You're here because you're trying to figure out how to live differently, and you trust me to be honest with you about it. Is that friendship? It's the beginning of one, yeah. Cassandra laughed, the sound surprised and slightly bitter. I'm 35 years old and just now learning what friendship actually looks like. That's pathetic. It's human, Noah corrected. Most people spend their whole lives never examining whether their relationships are real or transactional. You're doing the work. That takes courage. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Lily draw, and Noah realized that this moment, sharing ice cream shop patio space with a billionaire CEO who was learning how to be a person instead of just a success story, was somehow exactly right. I want to show you something, Cassandra said suddenly. Tomorrow, if you're free, both of you. Show us what? An idea I've been developing. A way to maybe start addressing what I care about. She smiled slightly. I could use your honest feedback before I commit resources to it. Noah glanced at Lily, who'd noticed them watching and waved happily. We're free tomorrow afternoon. Where should we meet you? I'll text you the address. Come casual, jeans are fine. The next day, Noah and Lily followed Cassandra's directions to an abandoned community center in a neighborhood not far from their own apartment. The building was dated but structurally sound, surrounded by a fenced yard with rusted playground equipment. Cassandra met them in the parking lot wearing jeans and a simple sweater that probably still cost more than Noah's monthly rent, but at least looked normal. She seemed nervous, almost shy, as she led them inside. "I bought this property last week," she explained, unlocking the front doors. "It used to be a community center but lost funding 5 years ago. I'm thinking about what it could become." The interior was dusty but full of potential. Large open rooms, a commercial kitchen, office spaces, and in the back, a surprising discovery: 20 small rooms that had once been used for after-school programs. "This is amazing," Noah said, walking through the empty spaces and seeing possibilities everywhere. "What are you planning?" "I want to create a comprehensive support center for working families," Cassandra said, her voice gaining confidence as she explained. "Free after-school care with actual educational programming, not just babysitting. Evening hours so parents working night shifts have somewhere safe for their kids. Community meals so families don't have to choose between working late and feeding their children. Access to social services, job training, health resources, everything in one place." Noah stopped walking and stared at her. "That would change lives, real lives, families like mine." "That's the idea, but I don't want to build something based on assumptions. I need input from people who actually live these realities." She looked at him hopefully. "Would you be willing to consult on this too? Help me design something that actually works instead of something that just looks good." "Cassandra, I'd do this for free. This is exactly what communities need." "I'm still paying you," Cassandra said firmly. "Your time and expertise have value, but I'm glad you're interested." Lily had been exploring on her own and came running back. "Dad, there's a huge room with windows and it would be perfect for art classes. Can I take art classes here when it opens?" "I'm counting on it," Cassandra said, crouching down to Lily's level. "I need kids like you to tell me what would make this place actually fun and helpful, not just what adults think kids need." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? You want my ideas?" "Absolutely. You're the expert on being 8 years old. I have no idea what that's like." As Lily started listing everything from art supplies to a reading nook to maybe some cats that live here, Noah watched Cassandra listen with genuine interest, taking mental notes, treating his daughter's input like it actually mattered. This was the change he'd challenged her to make. Using her resources for something real, something that helped people, something that connected her to her community instead of isolating her in wealth and success. She was actually doing it, and in the process, she was becoming someone he genuinely respected and liked, not despite her success, but because of how she was choosing to use it. "Thank you," he said quietly, while Lily continued her enthusiastic planning. "For what?" "For listening. For caring. For building something that will help families like mine instead of just writing a check to charity and calling it done." Cassandra smiled, and it reached her eyes in a way her corporate smiles never had. "Thank you for showing me what living better actually looks like. I'm still figuring it out, but this feels right." "It is right," Noah agreed. And standing in that dusty community center full of potential, watching his daughter dream out loud while a billionaire took notes, Noah felt the last of his resistance to accepting good things dissolve. They were building something together. Not a transaction, not a debt repaid, but an actual partnership based on shared values and genuine friendship. It was unexpected and strange and absolutely worth protecting. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. The renovation of what Cassandra officially named the Ward Center for Community Healing, Ward being Noah's middle name, though he'd insisted she not use his first, took 6 months of intensive work. Noah consulted on the design alongside Cassandra, ensuring every detail addressed real needs rather than abstract ideals about what struggling families might want. They brought in focus groups of single parents, interviewed social workers, talked to teachers and childcare providers. Cassandra listened to every conversation with the intensity she usually reserved for board meetings, taking notes, asking follow-up questions, genuinely trying to understand lives so different from her own. Noah watched her transform through the process. The brittle defensive CEO who tried to turn gratitude into a transaction slowly became someone softer, more open, more willing to be vulnerable. She spent less time at Vailcore and more time at the community center construction site, trading her designer suits for jeans and work boots, getting her hands dirty alongside contractors and volunteers. You know, you could just hire people to do all this, Noah pointed out one Saturday as they painted the children's reading room together. Lily was helping, making more of a mess than actual progress, but Cassandra had insisted she participate. I could, Cassandra agreed, carefully edging around a window frame. But then I'd miss this. Being part of building something real with my actual hands instead of just signing checks and making speeches. You're getting paint in your hair. I don't care. And the remarkable thing was, she genuinely didn't. The woman who'd once measured worth in stock prices and media coverage now spent her Saturdays covered in paint, surrounded by volunteers from the neighborhood, learning their names and their stories. Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking harried. Cassandra, the board is asking when you're planning to return to normal office hours. Chen specifically mentioned that your community project is taking time away from Vailcore business. Tell Chen that this community project is exactly the kind of strategic investment Vailcore should be making if we actually care about corporate responsibility beyond tax breaks. Cassandra didn't even look up from her painting. And tell the board I'll be in Tuesday morning for the quarterly meeting, but my Saturdays are blocked indefinitely. Marcus blinked. You're choosing painting walls over board management? I'm choosing to build something meaningful over micromanaging executives who are perfectly capable of handling day-to-day operations without me hovering. Cassandra finally looked at him. I spent 15 years being indispensable to Vailcore. Turns out the company runs fine without me there every second. Maybe better, since I'm not burning everyone out with my control issues. After Marcus left, shaking his head in confusion, Noah smiled. You're delegating. That's growth. I'm learning that my value isn't measured by how many hours I work or how tightly I control everything. That's terrifying, but also kind of liberating. Cassandra stepped back to admire their work. This room is going to be beautiful when it's done. It already is, Lily said seriously, paint splattered across her face. Because we made it with love. Noah and Cassandra exchanged a look over Lily's head, both fighting smiles at the earnest wisdom of 8-year-olds. She's right, Cassandra said softly. Love makes all the difference. 3 months before the scheduled opening, Cassandra showed up at Noah's hospital office with unexpected news. He was reviewing training materials when she knocked, and the expression on her face immediately told him something significant had happened. I need to tell you something, she said, closing the door behind her. And I need you to listen before you react. Noah set down his pen, concerned. Okay. I'm stepping down as CEO of Vailcore. Whatever Noah had been expecting, it wasn't that. What? Not immediately. I'm transitioning over the next 6 months to a new leadership structure where I remain on the board, but hand over day-to-day operations to a management team I trust. Cassandra sat down heavily. I realized that I built Vailcore when I was someone different, someone who measured worth in market dominalization and thought success meant being indispensable. But I'm not that person anymore, and trying to force myself back into that role is making me miserable. Cassandra, you can't just walk away from a billion-dollar company. I'm not walking away. I'm stepping back to the role I should have been in all along, strategic vision and long-term planning, not operational minutia. I'll still be involved, still guide the company's direction, but I won't be killing myself with 16-hour days trying to prove I'm irreplaceable. She met his eyes. You told me to find what I care about and build from there. I care about the Ward Center. I care about creating more programs like it. I care about actually connecting with people instead of just managing them. Vailcore doesn't need me the way this work needs me. Noah absorbed this, trying to process the magnitude of what she was saying. Have you thought this through? Really thought through what you're giving up? Every day for 3 months. This is an impulse. It's the most carefully considered decision I've ever made. Cassandra's voice was steady, certain. I'm 35 years old, and I almost died without a single person who genuinely missed me beyond my business value. That's not success, Noah. That's failure at the things that actually matter. I want to fix that while I still can. What does Vailcore's board think? Half of them think I've lost my mind. The other half are relieved they'll finally get to implement their own ideas without me blocking everything. She smiled wryly. Turns out being a control freak doesn't inspire loyalty, just resentment and fear. But you're sure? This is really what you want? I've never been more sure of anything. Well, except maybe that investing in emergency response training was a good idea. She gestured to his office. You showed me what choosing meaning over achievement looks like. I'm just following your example. Noah shook his head slowly. I didn't choose meaning over achievement. I chose presence over advancement. There's a difference. You can still achieve incredible things. You're just redefining what achievement means to you. Exactly. And my new definition involves building community support centers across Tennessee, starting with the Ward Center and expanding from there. I've got the resources, the motivation, and now I'll have the time. I just need partners who actually understand the communities we're trying to serve. She looked at him hopefully. You're still consulting, right? Because I'm going to need a lot more of your input. You're building an empire of community support instead of a tech empire. I'm building something that matters to me personally instead of something that looks impressive to strangers. Yes. Noah stood up and crossed to where Cassandra sat, then did something that surprised them both. He pulled her into a hug. She stiffened for a moment, then relaxed into it, and Noah felt her shaking slightly. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. This takes real courage. I'm terrified, Cassandra admitted against his shoulder. What if I'm giving up everything that made me successful? What if I fail at this new thing? What if I'm not actually capable of building meaningful relationships and I'm just fooling myself? Then you'll learn and adjust, same as everyone else. But Cassandra, you're already building meaningful relationships. With me, with Lily, with the families you've been interviewing for the Ward Center, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from progress you've already made. She pulled back, wiping at her eyes. When did you become my therapist? Around the time you became my friend. Friends tell each other hard truths and support each other through scary changes. That's how this works. I'm still learning the rules of friendship. You're doing fine. Better than fine, actually. Cassandra laughed shakily. Okay, good. Because I'm going to need friends when the tech blogs roast me for abandoning my company to play nonprofit philanthropist. Let them talk. You're not doing this for them. You're doing it for you and for the families who need what you're building. The Ward Center officially opened on a sunny Saturday in October, exactly 1 year after the car accident that had started everything. The neighborhood turned out in force. Families who'd been consulted during the design process, volunteers who'd helped with construction, local officials who'd supported the permits and zoning changes, and media who still couldn't quite believe a billionaire CEO was stepping back from her company to run a community center. Noah stood near the entrance with Lily, watching Cassandra give an impromptu tour to Mayor Harrison, who'd made a full recovery from his choking incident and had become an enthusiastic supporter of the Ward Center project. She's really good at this, Lily observed, talking to people and making them feel important. She is, Noah agreed. She just had to learn that people are more important than profits. Did you teach her that? I think she taught herself. I just gave her permission to try. The official ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for 2 o'clock. Cassandra had insisted that Noah participate, arguing that the center wouldn't exist without his input and his willingness to challenge her assumptions about what communities needed. Noah had argued back that this was her vision, her resources, her achievement. They'd compromised on joint recognition, which made Noah deeply uncomfortable but seemed important to Cassandra. As 2 o'clock approached, the crowd gathered in front of the building where a red ribbon stretched across the entrance. News cameras positioned themselves for the best angles. Local politicians jockeyed for photo opportunities. The energy was festive, celebratory. Cassandra took the microphone first, and Noah noticed she'd abandoned her usual corporate polish for something more genuine and personal. A year ago, I was in a car accident that should have killed me, she began, her voice clear and strong. I was saved by a man I didn't know, working a job that didn't use his full talents, who had no reason to care whether I lived or died, except that he believed every life matters. That night changed everything for me, not just because I survived, but because I had to confront what I was surviving for. The crowd was silent, attentive. I'd spent 15 years building a successful company, achieving everything society said I should want, and I was profoundly unhappy, lonely, disconnected from anything meaningful. I had success without purpose, achievement without joy, wealth without anyone who actually cared about me beyond my business value. Cassandra's eyes found Noah's in the crowd. The man who saved my life taught me something crucial, that being alive and having a life worth living are two different things, that success measured only in dollars and influence is empty, that the people who build their lives around connection and service and being present are the ones who truly understand what matters. She gestured to the building behind her. The Ward Center exists because Noah Mercer challenged me to live better, to use my resources for something that actually helps people instead of just generating wealth, to build relationships based on genuine care instead of strategic advantage, to measure my worth by the positive impact I have on my community instead of my net worth or media coverage. Cassandra paused, emotion evident in her voice. This center is my attempt to do that, to create something that supports working families, that provides safe spaces for children, that strengthens our community in tangible ways. It's named the Ward Center after Noah's middle name, because while he refused to let me name it after him directly, I wanted it to carry some recognition of the person whose example inspired everything this place represents. Noah felt his throat tighten. He'd known about the name, had reluctantly agreed to it, but hearing Cassandra explain it publicly made it real in a new way. I'm not a hero, Cassandra continued. I'm just someone who finally understood that having resources comes with responsibility to use them well, to build things that matter, to support people who are working hard but struggling anyway through no fault of their own, to create opportunities for children to flourish regardless of their family's income level. She looked out at the crowd, families in their weekend clothes, children fidgeting with anticipation, volunteers who'd given their time to make this real. This center belongs to you, Cassandra said firmly. It was built based on your input, designed around your needs, and exists to serve this community. My job is just to make sure it has the resources to keep doing that indefinitely. Your job is to use it, to make it yours, to tell me when we're getting it right and when we need to adjust. Applause rippled through the crowd. Mayor Harrison said a few words about community investment and public-private partnerships. A local pastor blessed the building. And then it was Noah's turn at the microphone. He'd prepared remarks, but looking out at the crowd, at Lily beaming with pride, at Cassandra watching him with genuine affection, at families who would actually benefit from this place, his prepared words felt insufficient. I'm not comfortable with public speaking, he began honestly. I prefer quiet work that helps people without fanfare. But Cassandra insisted I say something, so here it is. He took a breath. A year ago, I was working security for $12 an hour, bringing my daughter to work because I couldn't afford childcare, making the best of a situation that was far from ideal. I'd given up a medical career to be present for Lily, and I didn't regret that choice, but it came with real costs. When I helped Cassandra in the emergency room that night, I had no idea it would lead to any of this. Noah gestured to the building. This center represents what happens when someone with resources actually listens to people who need support. Not charity, but genuine partnership. Not handouts, but structural changes that make it possible for working families to thrive instead of just survive. Cassandra created this, but she did it by asking families like mine what would actually help, then building exactly that instead of what she assumed we needed. He found Cassandra in the crowd. She's grown more in the past year than most people grow in a lifetime. She's gone from measuring worth in stock prices to measuring it in children's laughter and parents' relief when they drop their kids off somewhere safe. She's learned that being vulnerable and asking for help isn't weakness, it's strength. And she's built something that will change lives in real, tangible ways. Noah's voice roughened with emotion. I saved Cassandra's life that night in the ER, but she saved mine too. She reminded me that using my skills matters, that being present and being ambitious aren't mutually exclusive, that accepting good things doesn't diminish the sacrifices I've made. She gave me back my career without taking away my time with Lily. That gift is beyond measure. He stepped back from the microphone and found himself pulled into a hug by Cassandra, who whispered, "Thank you," against his shoulder while cameras flashed and the crowd applauded. Together they cut the ribbon, and the Ward Center officially opened its doors. The rest of the afternoon was chaos in the best possible way. Children poured into the facility, exploring the art rooms and the library and the play spaces. Parents toured the community kitchen and the family resource center and the evening care facilities. Volunteers gave demonstrations of the programming they'd be offering. Local organizations set up information tables about services they'd provide on site. Noah watched it all with a sense of profound satisfaction. This was what meaningful achievement looked like. Not personal glory or recognition, but genuine positive impact on real people's lives. Lily tugged on his hand. "Dad, can I show Ms. Cassandra the drawing I made?" "Of course, Bug." They found Cassandra in the art room admiring children's work pinned to a massive corkboard. Lily shyly presented her drawing, a picture of Noah in his security uniform holding a jacket over a stick figure labeled "The Lady," with the words "Dad Saves the Day" written in careful 8-year-old handwriting. Cassandra stared at it for a long moment, then knelt down to Lily's level. "This is beautiful. Can I keep it?" "Really?" Lily's face lit up. "You want my drawing?" "I want to hang it in my office to remind me what actually matters. A brave dad taking care of someone who needed help, even though it wasn't his job and he didn't have to. That's the kind of heroism worth remembering." "Dad says he's not a hero," Lily confided, "but I know he is. And you're a hero too, for building this place." "We're both just people trying to do good things," Cassandra said gently. "But thank you, Lily. That means more than you know." As the sun began to set and families reluctantly headed home, Noah found himself alone with Cassandra in the main community room, both of them exhausted but happy. "We did it," Cassandra said, looking around at the space that had transformed from abandoned building to vibrant community hub. "We actually built something that matters." "You did it," Noah corrected. "I just consulted." "Don't diminish your contribution. This exists because you challenged me to live better, then showed me what that actually looked like." Cassandra turned to face him. "I have something for you, a gift, before you argue that you don't need anything." She pulled a small box from her pocket and handed it to Noah. Inside was a simple medal, military style, bronze, with an inscription that read, "For exceptional service to others, with gratitude and respect." "It's not an official commendation," Cassandra explained, "just something I had made. Because you deserved recognition for all those lives you saved in Afghanistan, all the soldiers you brought home, all the work you did that nobody properly thanked you for. And for saving me, not just physically, but by showing me what a life worth living actually looks like." Noah held the medal, his vision blurring slightly. "Cassandra, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just accept that you're valued, that your work matters, that you've made a profound difference in more lives than you probably realize." She smiled. "Including mine. Especially mine." Noah pinned the medal to his shirt, and it sat right over his heart, surprisingly weighty for something so small. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For this, for the Ward Center, for becoming someone I'm genuinely proud to call my friend. Thank you for not giving up on me when I was still figuring out how to be a person instead of just a CEO." Cassandra glanced around the empty community room. "What do you think happens next, with all this?" "I think we keep building. More centers in more neighborhoods, more programs based on real needs instead of assumptions, more partnerships with people who actually understand the communities we're serving." Noah smiled. "And I think you keep growing into someone who measures success by impact instead of income, connection instead of control." "What about you? What's next for Noah Mercer?" "I keep teaching at the hospital, keep consulting for ValeCorps and now for your community initiatives. Keep being present for Lily while also using my skills to help people. I keep trying to do both instead of thinking I have to choose." Noah met her eyes. "And I keep being your friend, challenging you when you slip back into old patterns, and celebrating with you when you grow. I'm gonna need that. The challenging part especially. It's easy to fall back into controlling everything when I'm scared or uncertain." "I know. That's what friends are for, keeping each other honest and growing." They stood together in the quiet community room, two people who'd been brought together by trauma and transformed by choosing to actually see each other, to be vulnerable, to build something meaningful together. The sun set fully, painting the room in shades of orange and gold, and Noah felt the kind of peace that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're meant to do, with people who genuinely matter. 6 months later, the ward center was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. Daily attendance was at capacity, families were on waiting lists for evening care, and the community meal program was serving over 200 people a week. Cassandra had begun the process of opening a second location across town, this one specifically designed for families with special needs children. Noah's consulting work had expanded to include training staff at both centers, developing emergency protocols for community organizations across Nashville, and advising on the design of the new facility. His hospital work continued too. He'd been promoted to director of emergency training and was being courted by medical schools to develop curriculum. Lily had started taking art classes at the ward center 3 days a week and had made friends with children whose parents worked similar hours to Noah's. She was thriving in ways that made Noah's heart swell, confident, creative, surrounded by community instead of isolated in hospital cafeterias. On a Saturday in April, exactly 18 months after the accident that started everything, Cassandra invited Noah and Lily to a small private ceremony at the ward center. When they arrived, they found the main room set up with just a few chairs and a small platform. "What's this about?" Noah asked suspiciously. "You'll see. Just trust me." Mayor Harrison arrived, along with Sandra from the hospital, Dr. Patterson, Mrs. Chen from radiology, and a handful of other people who'd been part of Noah's journey over the past year and a half. Cassandra took her place at the platform and gestured for Noah to join her. Reluctantly, he did. "A year and a half ago, this man saved my life," Cassandra began. "Not just physically, though he did that too. He saved me from a life of empty achievement and lonely success. He challenged me to live better, to use my resources for meaning instead of just accumulation, to build genuine relationships instead of strategic networks." She turned to Noah. "You refused recognition, refused payment, refused to capitalize on saving a billionaire's life. You just wanted to know I was okay, then go back to your quiet life raising your daughter. But your example changed everything for me, and I think it's changed things for a lot of other people too." Cassandra pulled out a framed certificate. "The city of Nashville wants to officially recognize your service. Not just the night you saved me and the mayor, but the years of work you've done training medical personnel, consulting with community organizations, and helping build support systems for working families. Mayor Harrison?" The mayor stepped forward. "Noah Mercer, on behalf of the city of Nashville, I'm presenting you with the Citizen Service Award for exceptional contributions to community health and safety. Your work training hundreds of medical personnel in emergency response protocols has undoubtedly saved lives. Your consultation on the ward center and similar initiatives has strengthened support for our most vulnerable families. And your personal example of choosing service over recognition has inspired others to step up when people need help." The small crowd applauded as the mayor handed Noah the certificate and shook his hand. Noah stood there, overwhelmed, looking at the people who'd gathered, his friends, his colleagues, his community. "I don't deserve this," he managed. "Yes, you do," Cassandra said firmly. "You deserve recognition for the good you've done, even if recognition was never why you did it. You deserve to know that your work matters, that your choices have positive ripple effects, that the world is better because you're in it." She pulled out something else, a small velvet box. "And one more thing. This is personal, not official." Inside the box was a pin, simple, elegant, with an inscription Noah had to squint to read. "To Noah, for teaching me what living better actually means. With love and gratitude, C." "I'm starting a foundation," Cassandra explained, "dedicated to supporting working families through community centers, emergency assistance, and structural programs that address real needs. It's going to be called the Mercer Foundation for Family Support, if you'll let me use your name." "Cassandra, that's too much." "It's exactly right. Your example started this. Your values guide it. Your consultation shapes it. Let me honor that publicly." She met his eyes. "Please, let me acknowledge what you've given me." Noah looked at Lily, who was watching with shining eyes, then at the small group of people who'd gathered, then back at Cassandra's hopeful face. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay." The ceremony dissolved into hugs and congratulations and genuine celebration. Lily proudly told everyone about her dad's awards. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears. Sandra made plans to collaborate on hospital foundation partnerships. Dr. Patterson offered to serve on the Foundation's medical advisory board. As the evening wound down and people drifted away, Noah found himself alone with Cassandra in the community room where they'd stood 6 months ago after the opening. "You know what the best part of all this is?" Cassandra said. "What?" "I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way I've never been before. I have work that matters, relationships that are real, a community I'm actually part of instead of just adjacent to." She smiled. "I have a life worth living, not just a resume worth printing. And it's all because you refused to let me treat your heroism as a transaction. You did the work, Cassandra. I just pointed you in a direction. You did more than that. You believed I could change, could be better, could build something meaningful even when I didn't believe it myself. That faith matters more than you know." Noah pulled her into a hug, and she returned it easily now, the awkwardness of early friendship long gone. "I'm proud of you," he said, "genuinely proud of who you've become." "I'm proud of us," Cassandra corrected, "of what we've built together. The Ward Center, the Foundation, this friendship, all of it." They stood together in the quiet community room, surrounded by evidence of lives changed and support provided, and genuine good accomplished, and Noah thought about the journey that had brought them here. A car accident that should have been tragedy had become transformation. A desperate attempt to repay a debt had become genuine friendship. A security guard and a CEO had built something that mattered more than either of their individual achievements. Lily appeared in the doorway. "Dad, can we go get ice cream to celebrate?" "Absolutely, Bug." "Can Ms. Cassandra come?" Noah looked at Cassandra, who looked back with obvious hope. "Of course she can," he said. "She's family now." And as they walked out of the Ward Center together, Noah, Lily, and Cassandra, into the warm April evening, Noah felt complete in a way he hadn't since Sarah died. He had his daughter, his work, his community, and now a friend who understood what it meant to choose meaning over achievement, connection over control, being present over being powerful. The quiet hero had finally been seen, not for attention or recognition, but because his goodness had changed everything for someone who desperately needed changing. And in the process of being seen, he'd helped someone else find their way from empty success to meaningful living. That was worth more than any award, any recognition, any public celebration. That was what living better actually looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real and connected and full of purpose. Noah took Lily's hand on one side and bumped shoulders companionably with Cassandra on the other, and together they walked toward ice cream and laughter and the kind of ordinary evening that made extraordinary lives worthwhile. The sun set behind them, painting Nashville in shades of hope and possibility. And the story of a security guard who saved a CEO ended exactly as it should, not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with friendship and family, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing they'd both chosen to live better together.